On the mountain road back to our hometown, we were caught in a mudslide. My husband and my sister-in-law were both trapped in the car. I told the rescuers to save my husband first. My sister-in-law, however, was buried for too long and suffered a miscarriage. Unable to bear the trauma, she drowned herself in the river. Afterwards, my husband said nothing, but when I was 5 months pregnant, he lured me to the riverbank and pushed me in. He said with chilling coldness, "You've taken 2 lives. What makes you think you'll get a peaceful end?" Before I could even struggle, the icy, bone-chilling river water claimed my life. Given a second chance, my heart is completely dead to him. He wants me to save his sister-in-law. Well, I'll be sure to grant his wish. On the eve of the Lunar New Year, my husband Sis-in-Law, my sister-in-law Fang-Yuan, and I were all in the same car, rushing back to our hometown. Little did we know, we encountered a severe landslide on the road. I had gotten out earlier to check the undercarriage, sensed something was wrong, and desperately ran back, narrowly escaping disaster. But Sis-in-Law and Fang-Yuan weren't so lucky. The moment they opened the car door, they were instantly buried. When he opened his eyes again, the scene was filled with cries of agony. Sis-in-Law's head had a bloody gash from a rock, and his arm was broken, a horrific sight. Meanwhile, Fang-Yuan was completely trapped inside the car. Mud surged in through the car window, pinning her down completely, leaving her unable to move. Heavy snow blocked the roads, and it took the rescue team an entire night to finally reach the scene. Fang-Yuan shouted from inside the car, "Please, get me out of here first. I can't take it anymore." Despite his severe injuries, Sis-in-Law did his utmost to comfort Fang-Yuan. "Fang-Yuan, don't be afraid, I'm here. I won't let anything happen to you." He then glared at me intently and commanded, "Lin Yan. What are you dawdling for? Tell them to get Yuan out of there now." Looking at the man I had shared a bed with for 5 years, I felt nothing but disgust and a profound sense of alienation. To avoid giving myself away, I forced down the hatred in my heart and feigned concern, asking, "But darling, what about you?" The rescue worker nodded in agreement. "We also recommend prioritizing the man's rescue. Based on our current assessment, his injuries are more severe. If we delay any longer, the consequences could be dire." With that, they took out their tools and prepared to begin the rescue operation. Sis-in-Law grew frantic and shouted, "Who told you to save me first?" I said, "Save her first. Didn't you understand?" His outburst caused the rescuers' expressions to visibly darken. Fang-Yuan gritted her teeth and sneered, "What kind of bullshit assessment is this? I'm pregnant, so of course you should save me first." The rescuer sighed helplessly and offered a professional explanation. "Based on the current pressure distribution of the surrounding mud and rocks, rescuing you first would inevitably worsen the man's situation and could cause secondary injuries." So I said with a troubled look, "Fang-Yuan, your brother has lost a lot of blood, and his wound is infected. He can't afford any more injuries." Sis-in-Law gritted his teeth and said, "Enough, I can handle it, as long as Fang-Yuan is okay. That's all that matters." He thought his selfless nobility would move the other person. Little did he know, Fang-Yuan simply took his words and ran with them. "Exactly, Big Brother is a man, strong and sturdy. What's a little blood or some inflammation? He said he can handle it, so what are you all worried about?" At Fang-Yuan's words, Sis-in-Law's expression froze for a moment. His lips parted as if to argue, but no words came out. He looked up, only to see me still looking hesitant. Sis-in-Law seemed to have found an outlet for his frustration, and his expression instantly turned cold. He said impatiently, "Lin Yan, don't think I don't know what you're scheming. Let me make this clear. If anything happens to Fang-Yuan or the child she's carrying, you will pay for it." That's exactly what I was waiting to hear. "All right then," I nodded and said to the rescue workers with a smile, "In that case, please focus on pulling my sister-in-law out first. I appreciate your hard work." Sis-in-Law's expression froze once again. He stared at me in disbelief, not expecting me to agree so readily. Fang-Yuan, on the other hand, looked delighted. Yes, hurry up and pull me out." So, without further ado, everyone got to work, pulling out shovels and a jack to begin the rescue. The group first began moving the looser mud and rocks from the perimeter, bit by bit, before attempting to pull Fang-Yuan from the vehicle. However, Fang-Yuan, afraid of the pain, was completely uncooperative. She insisted that they clear all the mud and debris off her body first before anyone tried to pull her out. She sneered, "I'm pregnant. If you're too rough and hurt my stomach, you'll have me to answer to." With no other choice, they could only painstakingly remove the dirt from her body, which severely delayed the rescue efforts. Time ticked by, second by agonizing second. Shinshinza had lost so much blood that his face was deathly pale, weak and drained. He lifted his eyes to look at me and asked, "How much longer?" I glanced in Feng Yuan's direction and said, "She's still buried from the waist down, it'll probably be evening before they get her out." Shinshinza's expression darkened even further. He muttered to himself, "How could it take this long? Shouldn't it only be an hour or so?" My heart sank. It suddenly dawned on me that Shinshinza might have been reborn as well. In my previous life, Shinshinza was rescued first. Feng Yuan had already passed out from the pain, so she didn't make a scene. The rescue was completed quickly. I looked in Feng Yuan's direction. At that moment, she was still ranting and raving, trying to boss everyone around. I sneered inwardly. This life, however, wouldn't be so simple. Finally, the soil was cleared from Feng Yuan's upper body, leaving only her legs still buried. She let out a long, deep sigh. With the crushing pain gone, she felt much more alert and alive, so she started complaining again about the rescue being too slow, growing impatient. Seeing everyone cautiously trying to open the car door, she just shoved it with all her might. "Can't you just open it? What's with all the dawdling?" This action caused a large amount of mud and debris to surge towards Shinshinza. A sharp cry escaped him as the car door crushed his already broken arm, twisting it into an even more grotesque shape. The rescuer immediately snapped at Feng Yuan, ordering her not to move. Feng Yuan looked aggrieved and muttered under her breath, "Seriously, do you have to be so dramatic?" Shinshinza bit his lip hard, his voice weak as he said, "But I really feel like I'm at my limit." Feng Yuan showed no concern for him, instead rebuking him with righteous indignation. "What's with all the fuss from a grown man? Just tough it out a little longer. Once I'm out, you'll be free too, won't you?" But before he could finish, Feng Yuan's handling of him became even more rough. Shinshinza's arm was twisted at a 90-degree angle, the pain making him grit his teeth. He looked up at me, a pleading note in his voice. "Lin Yan, I can't hold on much longer. Please, help me." He was begging for my help. I pretended not to understand and gently coaxed him, "Darling, just bear with it a little longer. You wouldn't want anything to happen to Feng Yuan and the baby she's carrying, would you?" Shinshinza grew frantic. "But if this drags on any longer, I'm going to die." Little did he know, Feng Yuan overheard those very words. Her expression changed instantly as she turned toward the man. "Brother, what do you mean by that? I haven't even been rescued yet. Are you trying to get sister-in-law to save you first?" Shinshinza, his mind clearing a little, hurriedly denied it. "No, that's not it." Feng Yuan snorted coldly. "It better not be. If anything happens to me or the baby, I'll never forgive you." Feng Yuan had actually been putting on a very convincing act all along. It was only when her own interests were threatened that her selfish and spiteful nature was revealed, too. Shinshinza's mouth fell open, his face etched with unprecedented agony and despair. After more than 10 hours of rescue efforts, both individuals were transported to the hospital. Feng Yuan sustained only minor superficial injuries and is otherwise fine. Shinshinza, however, was not so fortunate. He was rushed to the ICU for emergency resuscitation and blood transfusions immediately upon rescue. He very nearly didn't make it. The doctor said his brachial plexus nerve was completely severed, and with the muscle atrophy, he would never even be able to lift a glass of water again. For Shinshinza, a professor of piano, this meant his life was effectively over. A deathly silence filled the hospital room. Shinshinza stared vacantly at the ceiling, not uttering a single word. I sighed and said to Feng Yuan, who was doing her nails beside me, "This time, you really owe Shinshinza a huge thank you. If he hadn't chosen to save you first, both you and the baby could have been in danger." Hearing this, Shinshinza closed his eyes briefly and said, "I told you, as long as they're both safe, it's nothing." Yet his words elicited neither guilt nor gratitude from her. Feng Yuan wore a look of complaint. "Thank him for what? If he hadn't insisted on coming home so late, we wouldn't have run into that mudslide. I wouldn't have had to suffer like this." Hearing Feng Yuan's unreasonable words, Shinshinza broke into a violent coughing fit, his face etched with sorrow. "Feng Yuan, how can you think that way?" I chimed in. "Exactly. Your brother had no idea this would happen. Besides, he ruined his own future to save you. Don't you feel anything at all?" Upon hearing this, Feng Yuan immediately retorted, "Are you trying to guilt-trip me now? What happened to him has nothing to do with me. Don't you dare try to pin this on me. After all, Shinshinza was the most promising child in the Shin family. If his parents were to think it was her fault that he became disabled, she'd be in serious trouble." So, Fang Yuan immediately washed her hands of the whole affair. Little did she know, her actions left Shinshunzi utterly heartbroken. His eyes instantly welled up, his tone heavy with sorrow. Fang Yuan, does all I've done mean nothing to you? Fang Yuan muttered under her breath, your disability has nothing to do with me, you were just dealt a bad hand in life. By the time my in-laws and brother-in-law arrived, Fang Yuan had already left. The elderly couple nearly fainted upon hearing the news of Shinshunzi's disability. My father-in-law grabbed my arm and asked me, heartbroken, what had happened. I held nothing back and told them everything that had transpired. This includes the fact that Shinshunzi insisted on having Fang Yuan rescued first. My mother-in-law cursed angrily, he's lost his mind. My brother-in-law sniffled and said, Big brother was just thinking of my wife and the baby, at least the Shin family line is secure. I pretended not to know and offered comfort, that's right, after all. Fang Yuan is 5 months pregnant, it's a good thing she's alright. At those words, everyone looked up at me. My brother-in-law frowned, sis, you must be mistaken, my wife is at most 4 months pregnant, I was still abroad 5 months ago. I looked bewildered, how can that be? The doctor just examined Fang Yuan, it's definitely 5 months. The others still didn't believe it. The mother-in-law, growing suspicious, had a sudden thought and went straight to ask the examining doctor. Once they received the definitive answer, the shock and fury on everyone's faces could no longer be concealed. The father-in-law was so enraged that he suffered a heart attack on the spot and was rushed into the emergency room. The mother-in-law wept and wailed, beating her chest in despair. What in the world did our Shin family do to deserve this? 3. My brother-in-law was furious. How dare she cheat on me? She's got a death wish. With that, he stormed out. With a worried look on my face, I said, Mom, please, you must take good care of yourself. My mother-in-law grabbed my arm, tears welling in her eyes. What on earth happened to Chin's hand? How could he be so badly injured when he was perfectly fine? I feigned hesitation. Well, seeing my expression, she immediately guessed I was hiding something. She clutched me, agitated. What happened? Tell me everything, hold nothing back. I sighed and explained the whole situation to her. This included Fang Yuan's delay in calling for help, her emotional blackmail of Shinshunzi, and her reckless, misguided attempt to force the door open in her haste to escape, which resulted in Shinshunzi suffering further injury. My mother-in-law was heartbroken to hear it. That wretched woman, I'll make sure she's thrown out of the Shin family. In the living room, Fang Yuan's face was bruised and swollen, clearly beaten badly by her brother-in-law, with a look of utter grievance. She poured out her woes. Mom, Dad, I really can't go on living like this. He's hitting me even while I'm pregnant. How am I supposed to get through the days ahead? Yet, her parents-in-law just stared at her coldly. Their gaze made Fang Yuan feel increasingly guilty. The mother-in-law snorted coldly. Tell me, who is the child's father? Fang Yuan trembled from head to toe upon hearing this. The child is, of course, a Shin by blood, liar. The father-in-law slammed the table in fury. You're 5 months pregnant, how could the child possibly be Chinyu's? Get a divorce now. We won't accept a shameless daughter-in-law like you. Upon hearing this, the sister-in-law turned pale. No, please don't. The younger brother-in-law is a good-for-nothing, spending all day gambling and with a penchant for violence. Fang Yuan is no saint either, she's been involved with numerous men outside. In this lifetime, I thoroughly investigated her background and discovered she had concealed 2 previous marriages. Originally from a poor background, she only came into a substantial fortune through the settlements from those 2 divorces. Her decision to marry her brother-in-law back then was likely motivated by the Shin family's wealth. Perhaps it was only after the marriage that she realized her husband was a complete deadbeat, and that all the family's wealth was actually earned by Shinshunzi, so she set her sights on Shinshunzi, giving him all sorts of overt and covert signals. I was dismissive at first. I thought someone like Shinshunzi, so aloof and unattainable, would never be interested in a person of questionable morals, cheap tricks, and no substance. But I was wrong. He didn't just fall for Fang Yuan. He willingly plunged into a moral abyss for her, but if he ever found out he was just another fish in Fang Yuan's pond, I wonder if he'd still be so devoted. Seeing everyone's cold indifference, Fang Yuan gritted her teeth and said, the head of this family is Big Brother. If you want me to get a divorce, have you even asked for his opinion? The mere mention of Shinshunzi's name makes my mother-in-law see red. You're the one who crippled him, how dare you even bring him up? Fang Yuan glared at me, her expression hardening. Sister-in-law, was it you who told Mom and Dad? I shrugged. I just told them what I know. Fang Yuan's face flushed crimson with rage as she pointed at me and snapped, I knew it was you spreading rumors. I let out a light chuckle. You're the one who cheated, don't blame me for that. Fang Yuan narrowed her eyes darkly. Let me make this clear, the child I'm carrying is a Shin by blood. The child Fang Yuan is carrying is mine. Shin Chenza's voice suddenly rang out. He walked slowly down the stairs. As he passed me, he only gave me an indifferent glance before heading towards Fang Yuan, a look of delight on her face. Fang Yuan immediately linked her arm with his. Everyone was taken aback. Chenza, what did you just say? The mother-in-law shot to her feet in shock. Shin Chenza straightened his back, his posture rigid. I said, the child Fang Yuan is carrying is mine. The younger brother-in-law could no longer contain himself. He lunged forward, ready to throw a punch, but was pulled back just in time by the mother-in-law. His father snapped, this is utter nonsense, you have a wife, do you even realize that? Shin Chenza took a deep breath. Mom, Dad, I know what I did was wrong, but what's done is done. This isn't the time for blame, we need to figure out what to do next. Seeing everyone was silent, Shin Chenza turned to me and said, Lin Yen, I want a divorce. My in-laws placed great importance on carrying on the family line, but after 5 years of marriage, Shin Chenza and I still hadn't produced an heir. For now, as absurd as it is, the child in Fang Yuan's belly is still a Shin by blood, so they can't really say much more. All eyes turned to me. Fang Yuan looked at me with smug satisfaction, showing not a shred of guilt for wrecking someone else's marriage. Well, sister-in-law, who would have thought? In the end, it's you who has to get out, I sneered. Fang Yuan, you really have no shame, going after both men of the Shin family. What's next? Taking turns. Everyone was stunned by my bold statement. Fang Yuan's face flushed red instantly. She retorted in a flustered rage. What are you talking about? I will definitely divorce Chenyu. She glanced at Shin Chenza beside her. As if to declare her loyalty, Shin Chenza held her even tighter, his eyes filled with trust. My brother-in-law was so angry he started rolling up his sleeves again. But a glare from my father-in-law made him back down. My mother-in-law cleared her throat and advised me, good daughter-in-law, I know we've wronged you, perhaps you two should just get a divorce. My father-in-law turned his head away and snorted, and are you blameless? As a woman, failing to win your husband's affection is a fault in itself, brother-in-law, if you weren't so useless and could actually get pregnant. Do you think my brother would be paying all this attention to Fang Yuan? If you can't even control your own husband, you're partly to blame for this. The tables had turned, and everyone was hurling insults at me. Fang Yuan stroked her belly, looking at me with a smug expression. Shin Chenza also turned his head away coldly, gazing out the window. I suddenly found it utterly ridiculous. This was the family I had given my heart and soul to for 5 years. They had no idea that Fang Yuan had deceived everyone once again. The child in her womb was not a Shin at all, but the offspring of some wealthy businessman. The only reason I'm clinging to the Shin family is that I haven't gotten my hands on the money yet. She needs more money to pave her way to a marriage into a higher social standing. However, I have no intention of telling them any of this. I'm going to watch them pay the price for their own stupidity. With a faint smile, I produced a pre-drafted divorce agreement, then sign it. Everyone was taken aback when I brought out the divorce papers. Shin Chenza was also momentarily dazed. You had this prepared all along. You want a divorce? I nodded. He took the agreement, his expression darkening. Why? Proud as Shin Chenza was, he never imagined that his wife, who had loved him so desperately, would be the one to ask for a divorce. He stared at me with a dark, inscrutable look. I couldn't help but find it amusing. What? Is it only reasonable if you're the one to file for divorce, and I have to throw a fit first? Shin Chenza remained silent. Fang Yuan snorted coldly. Smart move. She snatched the agreement directly and flipped to the page outlining the division of assets. Then, her expression changed. You want half the company's shares. You've got some nerve. The mother-in-law frowned. It's only right to give you more compensation, but don't push your luck. I smiled. You seem to have misunderstood. I'm not asking for compensation. This half is rightfully mine. Everyone's expressions darkened. Shin Chenza's eyes narrowed. What are you implying? I smiled. When I married into this family, the institution had financial trouble. It was my dowry that covered the shortfall. My father-in-law snorted coldly. You only contributed 500,000. Now the institution's assets are worth tens of millions. Demanding half is utterly absurd. I then pulled another share transfer agreement from my bag and placed it on the coffee table. The absurd ones are you. That 500,000 wasn't a loan to the company, it was my investment. half the shares are in my name, since we're divorcing. What's wrong with me taking back what's mine? My brother-in-law studied it, his expression growing darker by the second. He finally said to everyone, It does seem to be the case. My father-in-law was utterly incredulous. Who signed this? Shinshinza paused for a moment before replying. It was me. 5. Both my in-laws were furious. You fool, they said. Shinshinza looked at me coldly and scoffed. Lin Yan, I underestimated you. Thank you for the compliment. I gave him a faint smile. The Shin family art institution had just been established when it ran into cash flow problems. Shinshinza and I were newlyweds back then. Still very much in the honeymoon phase. Upon hearing this, I didn't hesitate and invested all 500,000. Shinshinza said to consider it a loan from him. He promised to repay me, even if the institution were to go bankrupt. Out of compassion for him, I converted the 500,000 fund loan note into an investment. This means I stand with the Shin family through thick and thin, ready to face bankruptcy alongside them. At the time, Shinshinza was swamped with work and signed the document without reading it carefully. Who could have predicted that my selfless act back then would pave the way for my own future? After all, the Shin family was hardly going to part with millions of dollars so easily. I directly resorted to legal proceedings to forcibly reclaim what was rightfully mine. I used that money to start my business over again. Fang Yuan and Shinshinza's wedding was a very low-key affair, after all. It wasn't exactly a matter of pride. Fang Yuan, however, saw things differently. On the very day they got their marriage license, she gleefully posted a photo of it on her social media. In the picture, the two of them were nestled close together, looking utterly blissful. Fang Yuan captioned it, wishing us a lifetime of happiness together. Later on, she shared everything from pregnancy bump photos to honeymoon snaps. When I didn't respond, she even sent me a private message. She added 2 face with hand over mouth emojis at the end. I couldn't be bothered to respond either. However, the others couldn't stay calm. Shin's relatives and her entire social circle were utterly shocked. The story spread like wildfire through their community. Before long, it even made the local news. The headlines were sensational, along the lines of, Woman's social media boast about affair and pregnancy, involving 2 brothers. Sparks online uproar, true love conquers all. Woman has affair with husband's brother, gains family's forgiveness, remarries successfully, and ascends to the peak of her life. Shocking details of the affair, using pregnancy to force a takeover. The first wife is forced out. The public discourse grew increasingly sordid, severely impacting the performance of the Shin family's business. Students began demanding tuition refunds. And Shinshinza was also dismissed from his university position. I checked Fang Yuan's social media feed again, only to find it had been completely scrubbed clean. The elderly couple, unable to bear the pressure of public opinion any longer, finally recorded a video to set the record straight. They insisted their son and daughter-in-law were in a genuine relationship and urged everyone not to be misled by sensationalist online accounts. After that, it took a massive amount of money and effort to finally get the situation under control. My best friend came into my office and teased with a smile. Your ex-husband's family has been completely ruined by that woman. I find it so satisfying to watch. How can you stay so calm? I kept flipping through the documents without even looking up. It's best to stay on the sidelines and just enjoy the show. My best friend gave me a thumbs up. You're the kind of person who's meant for big things. I just smiled and said nothing. After all, this is just the beginning. This is far from the only show I'm here to see. A few months later, Fang Yuan gave birth without any complications. I saw it on her social media feed. 7 pounds and 5 ounces, finally delivered. My big, healthy baby boy. I've missed you so much. Even Shinshinza, who usually avoids social media, made a rare post on his feed. In the photo, Fang Yuan was holding the baby, with the elderly couple standing on either side, all beaming with joy. The second photo shows the baby's tiny hand gripping his finger, a picture of pure, heartwarming tenderness. His caption read, "My beloved wife gave birth to our son today. I finally understand what it means to cherish. I vow to devote my life to protecting my family, and I will never let them down." I gave his post a like. The show is finally about to begin. Late one night, my all-knowing best friend suddenly called me. She said something huge had happened to the Shin family. 6. I had a feeling. What is it, my friend? Buzzing with the thrill of a major scoop, exclaimed excitedly. Fang Yuan has run off with all the Shin family's money. She sold off the property and took the kids. A cold laugh echoed in my heart. Just as I thought, my best friend continued. Your ex-father-in-law had a severe emotional shock and was rushed to the ICU. I heard he's in critical condition, and they have no money for treatment. The whole Shin family is looking for Fang Yuan. Is that so? The corner of my lip curled up slightly as I replied with indifference. My best friend suddenly seemed to have a thought and warned me. You said Shinshinza can't borrow money. What if he comes to you? Don't you dare go soft on him. I just smiled. Don't worry, I said. I'm no pushover. Just as my friend predicted, 2 days later, Shinshinza finally couldn't hold out any longer and gave me a call. His voice was hoarse, clearly worn out. Lin Yen, how have you been lately? I rolled my eyes and shot back. I'm busy. Get to the point. Shinshinza on the other end sounded awkward. After a long silence, he finally spoke. Can I borrow some money from you? Shinshinza had a strong sense of pride and was always very concerned about saving face. He would never have come to me for help if he weren't absolutely desperate. However, I am not some merciful saint. I have never shown mercy to a traitor. What's more, he killed me and my child. That is a hatred that can never be erased. I scoffed. You're asking me for money? You can't be serious, Shinshinza pleaded urgently. Lin Yen, you have to help me. Fang Yuan is a professional con artist. She's taken all my family's money. I'm completely broke now. I don't even have a place to stay. And what does that have to do with me? Shinshinza's voice cracked with emotion as he continued. I know you hate me, but you can't deny you still have feelings for me. Just help me get through this. Once I find Fang Yuan and get the money back, we can get back together. I couldn't help but snort with laughter. Shinshinza, who do you think you are? I wouldn't take trash like you even if you were free. How dare you have the nerve to ask for my help? Keep dreaming, you, over there. Shinshinza was left completely speechless. You can imagine how utterly humiliated he must have felt. After a long, speechless moment, he finally spoke slowly. 5 years, I don't believe you have no feelings for me at all. You can't lie to your own heart. You're just waiting for me to give in. Then, a heavy sigh came from the other end. Lin Yen, you win. I let out a mocking laugh. I've always been the winner. Get lost, and don't come looking for me again. The person on the other end spoke through gritted teeth. I've already swallowed my pride. What more do you want? All you have to do is lend me. I hung up before he could finish. Shinshinza immediately sent me a message. Lin Yen, you'll live to regret this. Later, I heard from my best friend that Shinshinza, unable to afford the ICU costs, had to discontinue treatment. His father passed away last night. On the day of the company's opening, my brother-in-law and mother-in-law brought my father-in-law's body over, trying to emotionally blackmail me. My mother-in-law sobbed, accusing me of standing by and doing nothing in her time of need. She kept harping on about the large sum of money I got from the divorce settlement, yet when trouble came, I refused to contribute a single penny. Everyone exchanged uneasy glances. My brother-in-law had a look about him that said he wouldn't back down until he got the money. I spoke calmly and deliberately, emphasizing that all the assets being divided were in my name alone, clearly documented in black and white, and that I hadn't taken a single cent from them. I also exposed the shady dealings between Shinshinza and Fang Yuan. Public opinion shifted dramatically. After hearing my words, the crowd erupted into a frenzy of discussion. Isn't this the news that was exposed a while back? I can't believe it was all true. Wow, the Shin family is truly despicable. Their own son cheated and drove away his first wife, and now that he's been scammed out of everything, they have the nerve to pin the blame on the ex-wife. Oh my God, how dare they? They have absolutely no shame. The crowd was outraged, with a chorus of angry shouts, and some even raised their phones. The mother-in-law and brother-in-law became the targets of public scorn and fled in panic. Not long after, the mother-in-law also fell ill. The Shin family exhausted every possible means and finally located Fang Yuan. By then, she had already married into a wealthy and powerful family. Word is that Shinshinza was in a highly emotional state, demanding Fang Yuan return all the embezzled money, along with the child. However, Fang Yuan stood her ground and produced a paternity test report. It proved the child she bore was the wealthy man's flesh and blood, having no relation whatsoever to Shinshinza. Shinshinza couldn't accept such a devastating blow and was practically driven out of his mind with rage. In the end, he was unceremoniously thrown out by the bodyguards. I thought that would be the end of it. To my surprise, my brother-in-law somehow managed to sneak the child out afterwards. He demanded a huge ransom from Fang Yuan. threatening to kill the child if she didn't pay. 7. Fang Yuan and the wealthy businessman immediately contacted the police. During the police pursuit, the brother-in-law accidentally dropped and killed the child, and was himself shot dead by the officers at the scene. Fang Yuan lost her child, and the scandal exploded, spreading everywhere. The tycoon, concerned for his reputation, threw her out without a second thought. Cast out, Fang Yuan indulged in reckless extravagance, living in a drunken stupor day and night. In the end, she was cornered by Shenshenzhe in a casino. Shenshenzhe, who she had ruined, leaving him bankrupt and his family destroyed, had long lost the will to live. His only desire was to kill Fang Yuan in revenge. In the end, he succeeded, but was sentenced to death for it. He called me the day before the execution. He gave a bitter laugh on the other end of the line. I didn't know who else to see, so I called you. Lin Yan, will you see me off? I didn't refuse. There's no point in holding a grudge against a dying man. I sat on the other side of the iron bars, studying him. After just a few months, he was gaunt and unshaven. Gone was the proud, aristocratic air he once carried. Shenshenzhe was also looking at me, his eyes filled with unconcealable awe and desolation. Lin Yan, you've changed so much. I replied flatly, so have you. His lips trembled, his voice hoarse and broken. I was wrong. I was so terribly wrong. I was blinded, and I destroyed our life with my own hands, ruined all those beautiful days we once had. Only now do I understand. You were the one who truly cared for me, and I've lost everything. He kept repeating his confessions of remorse, but there are no second chances in this world. I looked at him coldly, as if he were a stranger. What's done is done. You made your own choices. Shenshenzhe's eyes were rimmed with red. Yes, I deserve this. You're the one I've wronged the most. I clenched my fists. You've wronged more than just me. You've wronged our child. Shenshenzhe shuddered from head to toe, looking up at me in disbelief. 8. Lin Yan, you've been reborn too. His face was a mask of agony and remorse, perhaps remembering what he had done to me. He couldn't bring himself to look me in the eye, and just kept talking. He said he hadn't known I was pregnant. He only found out during the autopsy. Overwhelmed with anguish, he ended his life by cutting his wrists. Yet what I remember, as I fell into the river, was the last glimpse of his utterly indifferent gaze. I ignored his cries and walked away. Those tears, that remorse, it was all just self-pity. His regret stemmed solely from the outcome being unfavorable to him. So-called repentance is just a way to ease one's own conscience. As for me, I won't be staying for him any longer. I will walk straight into my new life, without ever looking back. The end. Story 2. Since I found out that the servant's son liked me, I began to isolate and loathe him. Finally, I managed to find something against Zhongyu and drove him out of the house. 7 years later, the Yu family went bankrupt. In a desperate situation, I had no choice but to beg this rising business tycoon, Zhongyu. Once again, surprisingly, Zhongyu didn't make things difficult for me. On the contrary, he actually helped the Yu family out. I stayed by his side and tried my best to gradually heal the previous rift between us, until one day, an accident occurred. The car plunged off a cliff. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back in high school, during the worst period of our relationship. At that moment, I was doing everything I could to drive Zhongyu out of the house. Look at him, he's a pervert, so shameless. How can such a person still stay in our house? Mom and Dad, kick him out now. When I opened my eyes again, my head spun. The shouts I had just made still echoed in my ears. No one said a word. The villa was filled with an eerie silence. My father and mother looked at each other, seemingly taken aback by the scene. A pile of letters was scattered on the floor. They were the love letters Zhongyu had written to me in my previous life. I suddenly remembered that this was the time when I was about to graduate from senior high school 7 years ago. I had gone to great lengths and finally found something to use against Zhongyu, and then I drove him out of the Yu family. Zhongyu was the son of our family's servant. He was outstanding, intelligent, and good-looking, but for some reason, I disliked him very much. Perhaps it was because we lived together, and my classmates always liked to joke about us, asking if he was the child bridegroom arranged for me by my parents. What's more, he refused to clarify. Despite his cold personality, he was always much gentler and softer towards me than towards others. In my previous life, I distanced myself from him, mocked him. I even asked my mother several times to drive him out, but he never got angry. Gradually, he seemed to be truly sad. He talked to me less and less, until I found many diaries and love letters about me in his textbooks. Only then did I know that Zhongyu had liked me for a long time. like discovering a huge secret. I gathered the whole family together and then showed the evidence I found. I severely rebuked him, calling him terrible, a pervert, shameless. In fact, the content wasn't too explicit, but my mother had no choice. Finally, she fired Zhongyu's mother. It was the second semester of senior high school at that time, and because of the transfer, no other school was willing to accept Zhongyu, so he ended up repeating a year of study. Later, he went to study in a foreign place for college. In my previous life, I thought that was the last time I would see Zhongyu, but it wasn't. By chance, 7 years later, we met again. At that time, Zhongyu's business venture was successful. He broke into the circle of business celebrities and became a powerful new business magnate that no one could underestimate. Our family's company, however, was in a slump and on the verge of bankruptcy, with no one willing to help. In desperation, I had to beg Zhongyu for help. To my surprise, he agreed, and he didn't even make any demands. We maintained our communication through an ordinary business partnership, until one business trip, an accident suddenly occurred. The oncoming truck seemed to have a brake failure and crashed straight into us. Zhongyu desperately turned the steering wheel towards me. At the moment of impact, he tightly protected me under his body. Before he died, he reached out and touched my cheek. His voice was dry and filled with sorrow. Xiaohe, you hate me, don't you? But even though you hate me so much, all these years, I still wondered if we could be together one day. He paused and suddenly smiled. But it's so tiring. Loving you is so tiring. If there is a next life, I think I don't want to like you anymore. The rescue came too late. In the end, the crashed truck caught fire. The flames spread violently. I closed my eyes, placed my fingers on Zhongyu's cheek, and whispered, "It doesn't matter. If we could start over, let me come to you, okay?" I never expected that I would return to my high school days, and just a while ago, I had taken out the stack of letters I found in Zhongyu's textbooks and thrown them in front of everyone. My mother came over and took my arm, carefully trying to soothe me. Alas, how could this happen? Although she was always kind-hearted, she loved me the most, so she looked at Zhongyu, then at Zhongyu's mother, and sighed. Since Xiaohe and Zhongyu really can't get along, there's no other way, we'll have to hire someone else. Zhongyu stood in the corner. The dim light cast a lonely shadow over him. He quickly stepped forward, gave a soft and his voice was cold and without the slightest hesitation, he said, "I'm sorry, it's my fault for causing trouble to you. I'll go pack my things now and leave with my mother." He turned around resolutely without even looking at me. This was exactly the same as in my previous life. I suddenly remembered that before he died, he tightly held my hand and said in a very low voice, "It's so tiring. Xiaohe, so tiring." It turns out that loving someone is such a tiring thing. I quickly picked up all the letters, then rushed forward and grabbed his wrist. "Wait, Zhongyu, what I meant was just..." I racked my brain and muttered softly, "It's better to focus on studying before the college entrance examination. Can we talk about this after the exam?" I lowered my voice for the last sentence, so only the two of us could hear it. Zhongyu suddenly turned his head and stared at me intently, his expression full of doubt and disbelief. After a long while, he pursed his lips and said to me word by word in a low voice, "Yuhi, I also have feelings. Why do you think that after you've trampled on my heart once, I'll offer it up again for you to humiliate?" He bit his lip, and his tone became much more decisive. "Now and in the future, I don't want to be with you anymore." In the end, it was my father who settled the matter. He thought highly of Zhongyu, not only because of his excellent academic performance, always ranking first in the grade, but also because, although he was just in high school, he had already shown great talent in business and investment. Sometimes, his sense in strategic business decisions was more acute than that of some professional managers. He really wanted to nurture such a promising young talent. In my previous life, if I hadn't made such a fuss, he would have turned a blind eye. Now, seeing me silently pick up the letters and stop making a scene, he coughed twice and made a decision. "What's all this talk about leaving? It's not a big deal, just a quarrel between kids." "Nonsense." He walked over and patted Zhongyu on the shoulder, his tone much more amiable. "Xiaohe doesn't know what she's saying, don't take it to heart. She's not good at studying, you should help her more. As for the rest, we trust you two to be sensible. Let's talk about it later, okay?" Zhongyu seemed to want to say something, but my father simply waved his hand, ending the small family chaos I had caused. I knew Zhongyu wouldn't leave. He had always respected my father. Even out of respect for my father, he wouldn't leave immediately. Moreover, if he left now, there were many other things to consider, such as his mother's job, his studies, and the college entrance examination. A wave of self-blame welled up inside me, overwhelming me. I thought of my previous life. After the Yu family fell, I went to beg Zhongyu for help. At that time, I was prepared to be humiliated, but he didn't do anything. After the investment in the Yu family was underway, by chance, we were both a bit drunk, and I casually mentioned, Zhongyu, to be honest, I thought, you would hate me and pretend not to know me. Zhongyu was stunned for a moment. He looked up at me, then poured himself a glass of wine and smiled. He nodded and said, yeah, I thought so too, but Yu-He, 7 years have passed. I also want to let go. Zhongyu said the last sentence with great hesitation and pain. It must have been a difficult process for him to convince himself to forget everything that had happened in the past 7 years. And now, I want to make things clear once and for all. We agreed that this time, I would be the one to chase after him. He wouldn't have to suffer as much as he did in the previous life. That night, I secretly went to the 3rd floor of the villa, Zhongyu's room. After standing at the door for a while, I finally mustered up the courage and knocked gently, but the door wasn't fully closed and opened by itself. Zhongyu was sitting at the desk, looking through textbooks and exercise books. When he heard the sound, he quickly turned around, but when he saw it was me, his face darkened immediately. And his voice was extremely cold. Yu-He, what are you doing here? Did I invite you in? In my previous life, our relationship had already started to improve, but now, we were back to the worst period of our relationship. I couldn't get used to his current cold attitude for a moment and stood there, stunned. The words I had prepared got stuck in my throat and I couldn't say them. Finally, after a long while, I managed to say, Zhongyu, I'm really bad at math, can you help me take a look? As soon as I said this, I regretted it. The reason was simple. When Zhongyu used to follow me around, he had mentioned several times that he wanted to help me with my studies, but I had always scolded him back. I mocked him with all kinds of harsh words, like mind your own business, don't think you're so great just because you're good at studying, even if you get the first place, you still have to work for my family, right? I kept scolding him until he no longer dared to approach me and gradually became more reserved and silent. Sure enough, when I brought up the topic of tutoring again, Zhongyu curled his lips. His already impatient expression was tinged with a hint of confusion and sarcasm. He pushed the textbook aside, stood up, and walked slowly towards me. You were the one who wanted to keep a distance. And you were the one who didn't want to talk to me. Yu-He, weren't these all your words? What's wrong with you? Did you come up with a new and better way to deal with me and drive me out? Zhongyu stood in front of me, frowning, looking disappointed. I suddenly realized that for the 18-year-old, newly adult Zhongyu, at this moment, it was very difficult for him to trust me. This realization made me blurt out, no. I took a deep breath, rubbed my eyes, and finally said the words I had wanted to say since I came up here. One by one, no, Zhongyu. I don't want to deal with you. I just want to apologize for everything I've done in the past, including the verbal abuse, the unnecessary coldness and humiliation, and so much more. I've grown up and I'm not as naive as I used to be. With all kinds of emotions swirling inside me, my next words were almost choked with sobs. So can you give me a chance? Can you try to forgive me? These words came from the bottom of my heart. So Zhongyu, can you give me another chance? I looked up at him softly. Zhongyu turned his face to the side. The previous expressions of weariness and suspicion seemed to be gradually fading away. He picked up the notebook he had been looking at earlier from the desk and threw it into my arms. If you want to improve your math, the knowledge points in this notebook are enough. Then he opened the door. Just as I was holding the exercise book, not knowing how to thank him, he made a gesture of invitation. He still didn't look at me. And his tone was still indifferent. There's no need to talk about forgiveness or not. I've already figured it out. You're a young lady, and you have the right to act willfully. It's only natural that you wouldn't like someone like me. Holding the doorknob, his cold gaze fell on me, making me feel a little ashamed. So you don't need to apologize to me, and don't come to me out of pity anymore. What does it feel like to be rejected twice by the same person in one day? Well, let me tell you. I really wanted to find a place to bury myself. After Zhongyu closed the door, I almost ran back to my room with my face covered. Then I threw myself onto the bed and the phone in my pocket fell out and rolled aside. Just then, someone called. The screen lit up. It was Lin Rua, my best friend. We were deskmates in high school and had a very close relationship. She went abroad for college and later married into an old, established wealthy family. I heard that the family had very strict rules for daughters-in-law, so we didn't contact each other much. When the Yu family declined, I once thought about asking her for help, but considering that she wasn't happy either, I gave up the idea in the end. Seeing her name now, I was jolted awake. I immediately sat up and answered the phone. Yu-He, what are you doing? Lin Rua's voice came from the other end of the phone. She was probably outside, and it was a bit noisy around her. I'm at a bar. Xian's brother just closed a big deal and rented out the whole place. Come and have fun with us. In my previous life, I did go there, but now, just reborn and having gone through all this, I really wasn't in the mood. Lin Rua walked to a quieter place, and her voice became much clearer. Xiao-He, what's wrong? You sound unhappy. Did something happen? After 2 lifetimes, there are some things I can only talk to her about. After a moment of hesitation, I covered my face and let out a sigh. Rua, do you know that Zhongyu rejected me twice today? As soon as this name came up, Lin Rua's voice almost deafened my ears. She let out several exclamations of disbelief and asked in confusion, Zhongyu, Yu-He, are you crazy or am I? I clearly remember that you hated him very much. Don't tell me you're that kind of heartless girl who ignored him when he was chasing after you, but then noticed his goodness when he turned cold towards you. I leaned back and closed my eyes. Damn it, why did her words hit so hard? The worst part was that I couldn't refute them. Fine, fine, I grabbed my hair, feeling resigned. I was in the wrong, but you know how terrible my language skills are. That apology was already the best I could do. I don't know what to do next. Lin Rua was silent for a moment, seemingly deep in thought, then stopped trying to apologize. Zhongyu is willing to help you with your studies, Yu-He. Isn't there anything you can do for him to fix the relationship? What did Zhongyu need? He was excellent in studies, good looking, and the company he founded caused a sensation in the entire tech industry. He successfully became one of the new business tycoons of the next generation. His life seemed to be going smoothly, and he didn't seem to lack anything. No, there was one thing, perhaps. I remembered that he had been planning to start a business since high school, but he had always lacked a crucial patent. It wasn't until college, when he met more people, that he learned the patent was actually in the hands of a university professor. Unfortunately, he was a step too late, and it was sold to his competitor. In my previous life, when Zhongyu and I were on a business trip and had a car accident, we were on our way to find an alternative to this patent. After all, it was still needed for the Yu Group's investment deal. Now that I was back in the past and could start over, if I could get this patent first, Zhongyu's business venture would probably go much more smoothly. At least, he wouldn't have to spend time running around looking for an unproven alternative. Thinking of this, I urgently sent a WeChat message to Lin Rua, asking for help. Rua, I remember your mom is a university teacher. Does she know a lot of people in the academic circle? Can you do me a favor and find someone for me? Lin Rua's mother was a well-known professor, and she had many friends engaged in research. I guessed it wouldn't take long to find out the identity of that professor, but I didn't expect that the first person to contact me about this wasn't Lin Rua, but Xian, the neighbor who lived next door to me. Xian and I grew up together. Technically, we were childhood sweethearts, and our relationship used to be very good, but after experiencing my previous life, I really didn't want to use this term to describe him. The Xie family's business was actually a bit larger than the Yu family's, so in my previous life, when the Yu family went bankrupt, the first person I thought of asking for help was Xian, but he didn't agree immediately. Instead, he lit a cigarette and suddenly asked me a question. Xiao-He, do you know the Chen family? I'm engaged to the Chen family's only daughter. We'll get married next month, probably. I looked up, confused. The Chen family seemed to be a prominent family from the south, and I hadn't had much contact with them, but this seemed irrelevant to me asking him for help. Right. Xian took a big puff of his cigarette, stared straight at me, and suddenly laughed. I used to think we would be together. Xiao-He, this kind of marriage is just for show. We can each do our own thing. If you don't mind the false reputation, and you're willing to stay by my side. He didn't finish his sentence because I had already stood up, picked up the coffee on the table, and poured it over his head. Xian, when did you become such a despicable person? I originally didn't want to pay attention to Xian, but after school, he directly blocked me outside our classroom. I couldn't avoid him, so I had to walk with him to the side of the corridor, standing there impatiently. I gritted my teeth and asked him in a low voice, what exactly do you want? On the other side, Xian looked confused. He was stunned for a while, seemingly unable to understand how In just a few days, my attitude towards him had changed so drastically. Are you upset about something? You didn't reply to my text messages, Sis-in complained, but he still wore that gentlemanly mask on his face. He waved a business card in his hand at me and leaned towards me with a smile. But don't be angry with me. I heard that Xiao-He was looking for someone, so I immediately asked my family to help. How are you going to thank me? I blinked and quickly understood. The business card in Sis-in's hand was the contact information of the professor I was looking for. Probably that night at the bar, Lin Rua had mentioned it casually, and he had remembered it, but even so, I didn't want to owe Sis-in a favor. Moreover, the request he made was very annoying. Isn't the son of your family's servant very good at studying? He can even predict exam questions. Why don't you get his notes, and we can study them together? Crazy, I thought with a frown. Before I could refuse, I glanced to the side. Suddenly, I saw Zhongyu. He was holding a stack of test papers. He had just come out of the teacher's office. As he passed by, his gaze seemed to casually rest on us for a few seconds, and then it moved away. I didn't know how much he had seen or heard, but his expression was as if we were the most insignificant strangers he had ever met. I didn't expect to run into Zhongyu, since school was already over. I thought he had left long ago. I pushed Sis-in aside forcefully and chased after Zhongyu. Zhongyu, I gently tugged at his sleeve and took a breath. Why pretend you didn't see me? Let's go home together. Being pulled by me, Zhongyu finally stopped. When he turned his head to look at me, there was a hint of weariness in his expression, and his voice was deep. What do you want? If there's nothing else, stop following me. Miss you. Isn't your childhood sweetheart waiting to walk home with you? Go to him. I was stunned, in my previous life, to distance myself from Zhongyu, even though we lived together. When the driver came to pick us up from school, I would deliberately go to the Xie family's car and let Zhongyu go home alone. Over time, he understood and would rather take the bus than walk with me. In this new life, I didn't want Zhongyu to misunderstand again, so I took this opportunity to explain clearly. I have nothing to do with Sis-in. I don't like him. We're not childhood sweethearts, and we're not even very good friends. He came to me because he heard from Lin Rua that I was looking for someone. Before I could finish, Zhongyu interrupted me. Why are you telling me this? Don't flatter yourself. Do you think I care about the relationship between you two, Yu-He, whether you fall in love, get engaged, or get married in the future? It has nothing to do with me. I really have no interest at all. He emphasized the last sentence very strongly. Actually, just now, I had an irrational thought, a little bit of joy. Did Zhongyu care when he saw me standing with another boy? But when he interrupted me and said those last words, it was like a bucket of cold water suddenly poured over me, soaking me completely. It made me wonder if there was any point in my pursuit and persistence until now. In my previous life, Zhongyu said he liked me, but in this life, had his feelings changed? I lowered my eyes dejectedly, forced a smile that seemed indifferent, nodded, waved at him, and stepped back. You're right, I'm a bit annoying, but Mr. Zhong, you've rejected me 3 times. There's a limit to everything. Even I, Yu-He, can get hurt, you know. After saying that, I turned around and ran away with my hands behind my back. There were tears in the corners of my eyes, and I felt like crying, so I ran away quickly, as if escaping. I didn't turn around, so I naturally didn't see that behind me, Zhongyu was tightly gripping the test papers in his hand, his body tense. Could Yu-He really get hurt? He stared at the end of the corridor, his eyes dark. She was lying, he thought. He didn't believe it. Yu-He had always been heartless, and no one could get anything from her. Her pestering him now was just a whim. Once she got what she wanted, she would quickly get bored. But suddenly, an inexplicable sense of panic and restlessness surrounded him, making him uneasy. He suddenly remembered Yu-He's disappointed and sad eyes just now. Wouldn't she really give up on him? I took a taxi and went home. As soon as I entered the villa, the family driver came up and handed me a document bag. At the same time, my phone rang. It was Lin Rua. The moment the video call connected, her voice came through, loud and excited. Xiao-He, did you get the document bag? I found the contact information you wanted, the business card, the professor's information, and a temporary university access pass are all in there. Thoughtful, right? She spoke without pausing. Coincidentally, I heard that this big shot was a bit of a dunce in school and often copied my mom's test papers during exams, so don't worry, as long as it's not illegal, he'll basically help with anything. She winked at me and gave me a meaningful look. I don't believe that when Zhongyu sees our gentle, beautiful, and lovely Xiaohe, who's going all out to think of him. He won't have any feelings at all. Lin Rua hung up the phone. I looked at my phone. Actually, I could have taken it to school tomorrow. But I don't know why. I suddenly really wanted to see him right away. Maybe it was because this phone call connected my previous life and this life. I still wanted to give myself another chance to make things clear in person. After a moment of hesitation, I stopped the driver. Can you take me back to school? I ran back to school, out of breath, with my school bag on my back. Organizing test papers was a troublesome task, and there was also the work of transcribing scores and ranking students. At this time, Zhongyu should still be there, but when I climbed the stairs and stood outside the classroom again, I found it empty. The door was slightly ajar, and the lights were on, but where was he? I scratched my nose and was about to take out my phone to call him when a security guard on patrol walked over. When he saw me, he frowned and asked, "Are you looking for the boy who was just in this classroom? I heard you on the phone. He's already gone down to the playground." I didn't pay attention to any phone call. I only heard the words playground. I thanked the security guard and then turned around and ran downstairs. The night was dark. Only the streetlights near the basketball hoops were on, casting a dim yellow light. Zhongyu's tall and slender figure stood out clearly. In front of him stood another girl. I had seen her in my previous life. The first investment in Zhongyu's startup came from her family. She was probably the one who pulled him out of the abyss. I had always thought that in this new life, I was making up for the kindness Zhongyu had shown me. Without the important technology, I would help him contact the professor. If there was a lack of investment, the Yu family could assist, but now it seemed that Zhongyu was right. It was me who was being presumptuous. Zhongyu didn't need me. In my previous life, without me by his side, he still lived a good life. Even without the patent and the Yu family's funding, step by step, although it was slower, he could still reach the top. In this new life, perhaps the best choice was to let him be free and not interfere with each other. Standing in the corner, my mind was filled with these jumbled thoughts, until Zhongyu turned around. Our eyes met. I opened my mouth slightly and smiled as I called his name, Zhongyu. At that moment, his expression suddenly became flustered, and his face turned pale. I don't know why, but after understanding all this, I actually felt relieved. Those feelings of sadness and distress were all gone. I waved at Zhongyu and the girl beside him. In my memories of 2 lifetimes, she was a very gentle girl. She smiled, said a few more words to Zhongyu, then tugged at her school bag strap and turned to leave. On the contrary, Zhongyu strode towards me in a hurry. He reached out his hand and then put it down, as if he wanted to grab my wrist, but I took a step back to keep a distance from him. Then, in his somewhat dazed gaze, I handed him the document bag. "You probably need this. This professor has in-depth research on this technology. You can try to contact him." Zhongyu suddenly looked up. He held the document bag but didn't open it. He didn't ask me why I knew about the difficulties in his current startup. His voice was a bit hoarse. "Okay, I'll work hard, Yuhi. I won't let you down." When he looked up at me, his eyes were shining brightly, as if stars were rising in them. I nodded too. Of course, Zhongyu would succeed sooner or later, but the next moment, I felt sorry because I had chased the other person away because of me. I scratched the tip of my nose and pointed in the direction the girl had left. "I have nothing else. Do you want to chase after her?" The glimmer of hope that had just emerged faded away in an instant. Zhongyu seemed to stumble and then anxiously followed behind me. "Don't get me wrong," he explained awkwardly, his voice strained. "There's nothing between her and me. We just met recently because some time ago, I happened to." I interrupted him. "There's no need to explain. You don't have to report to me who you date or be friends with." Then, I said earnestly, "Zhongyu, I wish you success, happiness, and freedom. May all your wishes come true." After deciding to stop my presumptuous pursuit of Zhongyu, I had a sound sleep. It was the best sleep I'd had since being reborn, peaceful, reassuring, and content. When I woke up the next day and picked up my phone, I found a long string of messages from Zhongyu in our chat window, sent close to midnight. They were about the girl on the basketball court yesterday. It turned out that a few days ago, the girl's father had a sudden heart attack. Zhongyu happened to pass by and took him to the hospital. She came specifically to thank him and invited him to visit her home when he was free. I didn't know about this in my previous life, but thinking about it, it made sense. Otherwise, why would she invest in him without hesitation? There must have been elements of gratitude involved. Looking at this long explanation, I didn't know how to reply. After some thought, I put the phone down again. After all, I had more important things to do now: study, in my previous life, my grades were mediocre, hovering around the middle of the class. I barely managed to get into an ordinary university. Logically, as someone who had been reborn, I should have forgotten all my high school knowledge, but after the Yu family went bankrupt, in order to save money to pay off debts, I didn't just rely on others for help. I took on several jobs, working long, consecutive hours. Many large companies, upon hearing that I was from the Yu family, refused to interview me out of sheer curiosity. The highest paying part-time job I found was tutoring high school students. To improve my teaching level, I stayed up late watching teaching videos, painstakingly reviewing all the knowledge points I had missed, and even studied them more thoroughly and seriously. This was why. Even though the college entrance examination was just a few months away after my rebirth, I could remain calm. When I arrived at the classroom, the previous monthly exam papers were already on my desk. Zhongyu must have spent time organizing them after school yesterday. The class rankings for each subject were written in the top right corner. Lin Rua turned around from the front row, took a look, and sighed. Xiaohe, your math still isn't good. Do you want me to give you the contact information of one of my mom's students? I heard he got a perfect score on the college entrance examination math. This paper was the one I took before being reborn. My level remained the same, so my grades were naturally average. I shook my head, about to decline, when Zhongyu, carrying a stack of books, happened to pass by the aisle. His gaze casually glanced at my paper, then he stopped. You drew the auxiliary line in the wrong place for this big question. There are two relatively simple ways to solve it, and they're less likely to lead to mistakes. As if afraid I would refuse, he coughed twice and glanced at me cautiously. Didn't your father ask me to help you with your studies? Zhongyu's offer really made me hesitate for a moment. At first, I suggested he tutor me to get closer to him, but now, I weighed my options. Should I study on my own or study with Zhongyu? Quickly, I made my decision. I had my own rhythm, and following my own study habits would probably yield better results. I looked up at Zhongyu and smiled, then took out the notebook he gave me last time from my bag and shook my head. I've read this. It's really detailed and well organized. I've learned a lot from it. I think this is enough. Did you quarrel with Zhongyu? Lin Rua peeked at me curiously. A few days ago, you were all about chasing him. Now that you have a legitimate chance to be together, why are you focusing on studying instead? Lin Rua was a dance major. Her family had already paved the way for her future, so she didn't have much pressure from exams. Maybe in the past, I would have thought the same way, but after experiencing my previous life, I knew that to prevent the Yu family from going bankrupt, it wasn't just about avoiding a certain scheme from our competitors or a failed investment. More importantly, I needed to make myself strong enough to truly take over the company when my father got old. This second chance at life was like another opportunity. I rented a 24-hour study room and went there every day after school to study and do exercises. Just like when I was desperate and had nothing after the bankruptcy. During this time, I reviewed past exam papers and completed most of the well-known exercise books on the market. As the exam approached, during the final sprint stage, I opened the notebook Zhongyu gave me. It was meticulously organized, categorizing various methods, common mistakes, and even prediction questions. Most of the content targeted my weak areas. As I went through it page by page, at the end, a strangely shaped photo fell out from the loose leaf pages. It must have been put in there by accident, and its edges were slightly yellowed. I bent down to pick it up. It was a group photo of our entire class taken at the beginning of high school. Because of traffic congestion, Zhongyu and I were late and stood at the back of the class. He cut out the other classmates, leaving only the two of us. As far as I could remember, this was the only photo we had together in all those years. On the back, he wrote our names in his usual neat and strong handwriting. Yu-he, Zhongyu, meet at the peak. After the college entrance examination results were announced, Zhongyu maintained his excellent performance, ranking first in the city. It was said that the admissions offices of Tsinghua University and Peking University had already started calling him. Meanwhile, my name also shocked the whole school. As a student who usually ranked in the middle of the class, I had an outstanding performance and ranked second in the school. This score was high enough for me to choose any top major at universities across the country. The school hung up banners, and TV stations wanted to interview me about my study tips. My father was so excited that he almost fainted. He even wanted to create a big poster and send it to every employee in the company. Fortunately, my mother and I reacted quickly and strongly opposed the idea. preventing him from carrying out this impractical plan. Over the 2 lifetimes, some things had changed slightly. For example, Sis-in didn't perform well in this exam, in the previous life. Before the college entrance examination, Zhongyu put the notes and some predicted questions he had compiled into my desk. I didn't want to look at them, and in the end, Sis-in took them. As a result, one of the big questions was exactly what Zhongyu had predicted, and Sis-in got more than 10 extra points. This time, due to those 10 points, his college application didn't meet the requirements, and he was dropped to the next batch. I heard his father was very dissatisfied and considering making him repeat a year of study. As for me, I had also decided on the university I wanted to attend. In my previous life, I studied art and design. Although I liked it, it was of little use for running the company. This time, I carefully selected a university with strong business and finance programs and went to Lin Rua's house to fill out the college application form with her. Just before submitting the form, my phone rang. A WeChat message popped up. It was from Zhongyu. We hadn't contacted each other for many days. There was only one line: "Have you decided which university to go to?" The setting sun shone through the window, casting a warm and pleasant glow. I typed a reply: "Yes, I'm going to University A in the north. What about you?" He seemed to be typing and deleting his message for a long time. After much thought, he finally sent a message: "Ah, what a coincidence. I'm also planning to apply to University A. Its science and engineering programs are among the best in the country. And I'm just planning to develop in that direction." The wind blew in, and outside were large white clouds. It was a beautiful day. "Okay," I replied, "let's work hard together." Zhongyu. After entering university, the company Zhongyu founded developed even faster than in the previous life. This time, more investment companies noticed him in advance and expressed their intention to invest and cooperate. He also moved his mother out of the Yu family's villa, bought a separate apartment, and hired a caregiver to take care of her. He was very busy, and we didn't see each other often, only occasionally running into each other in public classes, at grade-level ceremonies, or at alumni gatherings. Every time, he seemed to come prepared, bringing me gifts, such as newly launched products from his company or snacks and pastries his mother made at home. The most recent time was at the end of the summer vacation when we agreed to take a plane back to school together. When we reached the school gate, he scratched the tip of his nose and said to me, "Xiaohe, my company is preparing for an IPO. I'll be doing a financial interview on TV in a few days. Would you watch it?" His eyes were bright, suddenly reminding me of that night in high school when I handed him the document bag and the spark that lit up in his eyes at that moment. The interview was scheduled for a week later in the evening. My roommates and I were all in the dormitory. I originally planned to watch the live broadcast on my phone while lying on the bed, but one of my roommates suddenly stood up, held her laptop, and suggested, "Hey, do you know Zhongyu from the School of Mathematics? I went to a club activity and heard many people talking about him. He not only founded a company but is also preparing for an IPO. There's an interview with him tonight. Don't you want to watch? He's the most famous figure among our grade. This is a must-see." That's when I realized how famous Zhongyu had become among our classmates. The others also moved their stools closer. I was halfway up the ladder to my bed, but I had to come back down and join them. When we entered the live streaming room, the school's network malfunctioned. We spent a long time trying to fix it. By the time we finally got connected, it was already the intermission. The host, holding a small notebook, was chatting casually with Zhongyu. "There aren't many people who start a business in university, right? I heard you were the top scorer in the city for the college entrance examination. With so much talent, there must be a lot of girls who like you at school. Are you single?" One of my roommates commented while munching on sunflower seeds. The host really knows how to get to the point. So many people are curious about Zhongshan's private life. His fans line up from the School of Mathematics all the way to the auditorium. I wonder if he's not interested in girls at all. Could he be gay? On the screen, Zhongyu sat upright. He touched his fingers, thought for a moment, and then smiled. "Well, I already have someone I like. I've liked her for a very long time." Suddenly, the dormitory fell silent, and everyone stared intently at the computer screen. The host was taken aback. "Haven't you confessed to her?" Zhongyu shook his head. "Her world seems so far away from mine. She comes from a top-notch family, is beautiful, and popular. I always felt I wasn't good enough for her. I didn't think she could like me either." He smiled, "But for a while, she was actually very proactive towards me, but at that time I was too insecure. I was always afraid it was just a fleeting moment, that she was just having a whim. I thought that only when I became excellent and successful enough could I stand beside her one day. The host nodded and pressed on, what about now? You're already very successful. Zhongyu lowered his head, deep in thought. I don't know, he said softly, I want to call her. Is that okay? Outside the dormitory, the cicadas chirped, just like the summer after the college entrance examination when he asked me which university I was going to apply to. At that moment, my phone rang. In an instant, everyone in the dormitory turned to look at me. I answered the phone. And Zhongyu's voice came through. Xiaohe, did you watch my interview today? I hummed an affirmation. He paused for a moment, and his voice became hoarse. Then you must have heard what I said just now. Yu-he, would you still accept me? I tapped the table with my fingers. It was a beautiful day, I said. Of course, I've been waiting for you. Zhongyu, I took over the family company. Having avoided the investment traps from my previous life, this time, the U group developed very smoothly. I recruited several recent graduates from the university and started training my own confidants and successors. Among them was a girl who was hard-working and dedicated. However, she was always arguing with her boyfriend, causing various relationship problems. When she came to organize my documents, she often asked me, President Yu, why do you and President Zhong have such a good relationship? Don't people who grow up together ever have cold wars? The villa was silent. I had no choice but to give her a rambling account of our high school days. The girl sat on a small stool, resting her chin in her hand, listening intently. She frowned and commented, Sister Yu, you have such a good temper. If my boyfriend said he didn't care who I was with, I'd definitely slap him twice. I laughed. Zhongyu has already eaten his words himself. She looked at me again. So when did you change your mind? When did I change my mind? I knew Zhongyu well. So I was never disappointed or resentful towards him. If I had to pick a turning point, perhaps it was the day we filled out our college application forms and he said he was also going to University A. In the previous life, despite getting a high score after repeating a year of study, he went to a university in the south. I later asked him if University A was the school he originally wanted to apply to. He smiled and looked at me. At that time, I only had one thought. I felt that I had to go to the same place as you, Xiaohe, or I was afraid I would never be able to catch up with you again. Story 2. When the car accident happened, Jiang Yan instinctively protected his white moonlight and pushed me towards death. He said with full confidence, I know you're a strategist who can be reborn, but he didn't know, that was my last chance to complete the strategy mission. When the out-of-control truck rushed towards the sidewalk, I was arguing with Jiang Yan. Today was the second anniversary of our relationship, but he was 2 whole hours late because he went to pick up his white moonlight who had just returned from abroad. Can you stop being so petty? Jiang Yan stood by the roadside, looking at me with disappointment in his eyes. Yao Yao grew up with me. She has no one to rely on in the country. Is it reasonable for me not to pick her up? I questioned him. So you plan to spend today with the 3 of us together? Jiang Yan was at a loss for words and didn't say anything. It was Xing Yao Yao behind him. Her eyes moved back and forth between us. When she opened her mouth, she almost burst into tears. Sister Xiaozhu, don't be angry. Ian just thought I was pitiful. So he said he wanted to take me out for a meal. There were tears in her eyes, and she looked like a little white flower swaying in the wind. If you don't welcome me, I'll just leave. After saying that, she turned around and was about to leave. Jiang Yan was quick-eyed and stopped her. He turned back and gave me a glance, his tone warning, Shinzhu, if you keep acting so unreasonably, we'll break up. I was stunned. In the 2 years of dating Jiang Yan, whenever something didn't go his way, he would threaten to break up with me just like now. At this moment, the system's reminder sounded in my mind, warning, breaking up will be judged as a failed strategy mission, and once the strategy mission fails, not only will I not get the mission reward, but I will also be eliminated. Seeing that I didn't say anything, Jiang Yan smiled contentedly and came over to hold my hand. Okay, Xiaozhu, we won't break up. We'll have a meal and then send her home, okay? I dug my nails into my palm and forced a smile. Okay, perhaps thinking that he had me under control. Jiang Yan was in a good mood all the way. He put his arm around my waist, leaned down slightly, and said in a low voice, Xiaozhu, you're so good. Such an intimate gesture made Xing Yao Yao, who was following behind us, turn pale, but I didn't have the heart to pay attention to her, because before trying to win over Jiang Yan, I had observed him for a long time. The former Jiang Yan was mature and steady, not at all like he was now. so childish as to force me to submit by threatening to break up. What on earth, what was wrong? I was lost in thought when suddenly there was a harsh car horn sound in my ear. Beep beep beep. I looked in the direction of the sound and saw an out-of-control truck rushing towards the sidewalk, straight at us. The crowd immediately panicked, screams filled the air. Jiang Yan tried to pull me and run at the first moment. But when he turned around and saw Xing Yaoyao standing there motionless, she was crying pitifully, "Ian, save me, I don't want to die." Jiang Yan panicked instantly. He instinctively shook off my hand, but he didn't control the strength well. I was wearing high heels, lost my balance, and was suddenly pushed by him. I fell to the ground and was in so much pain that I couldn't stand up. "Jiang Yan!" I shouted at his back with all my strength. He paused for a moment but didn't look back. He rushed towards Xing Yaoyao and took her to a safe place. Seeing that the out-of-control truck was getting closer and closer to me, everyone was running for their lives, and no one cared whether I lived or died. Bang, accompanied by the harsh sound of tires rubbing and the intense pain in my body, I clearly realized that I was dying. After the heart-wrenching pain, there was a sudden flash of white light in front of my eyes. When I regained consciousness, my soul was already floating in the air. The system let out a sigh. "Host, you're dead again." Why did it say again? Because during the process of winning over Jiang Yan, I had actually died twice already. The first time was by drowning. Given a choice between me and Xing Yaoyao, Jiang Yan chose Xing Yaoyao. The second time was during an earthquake. Given a choice again, Jiang Yan still chose Xing Yaoyao. This time, in the car accident, given a choice once more, Jiang Yan chose Xing Yaoyao. The system asked me, "I advised you to change the target of the strategy before, but you didn't agree. Do you regret it now?" I said, "No, I don't regret it." There was a moment of silence in the air. The system was extremely angry, and its usually cold electronic voice even carried a bit of the tone of being angry at someone's failure to live up to expectations. "Host, do you know that just now was your last chance to complete the strategy mission? Do you understand what the last chance means?" Of course I understood. This meant that I could no longer be reborn, but I really didn't regret it. At the beginning, we made an agreement that if the strategy was successful, you could exchange for a reward. Now that you've failed, you also have to accept the corresponding punishment. I let out an sound. I asked it, "What kind of punishment?" "Your soul will be forever imprisoned by Jiang Yan's side." As soon as the words fell, an invisible force sent me back to the scene of the car accident. The wind whistled in my ears. The system's questioning voice echoed in the air. "What on earth is so good about Jiang Yan? Is he worth you wasting all your chances to stay by his side? I should have just left you alone and let you fend for yourself since I knew you were so infatuated with love." I blinked my sore eyes, remained silent for a long time, and then said softly, "Well, leave me alone." The system never expected that I would give such an answer. It didn't understand why I was so persistent with Jiang Yan. It angrily scolded me a few words and simply went into hibernation. I floated and sat on the roof of the car boredly, propping up my chin and looking at the chaotic crowd. I saw two familiar figures at a glance. Xing Yaoyao was tugging at the corner of Jiang Yan's clothes and talking, but he seemed not to hear her and just stared at me motionlessly. Oh, no. He was looking at my body that had been crushed by the truck. Everything around seemed to stand still. After a long time, he suddenly pushed Xing Yaoyao away and stumbled towards me. He even fell down on the way, and blood was flowing from his palm. My body was already unrecognizable. He just took one look and couldn't bear to look anymore. Turning his head away, I was a bit far away and saw his lips move, as if he was mumbling to himself. I quickly flew over and got close to him. But the moment I heard what he said clearly, a thunderbolt seemed to explode on my scalp. He said, "Xiaozhu, you'll definitely be okay. I know you're a strategist and can be reborn. You've died twice before, and you came back to life in the end. This time will be the same, right?" As he spoke, he seemed to regain his faith. He took a deep breath, wiped his face, and said firmly, "I'll wait for you to come back." I was extremely shocked. No wonder Jiang Yan knew that he could easily control me by threatening to break up, because he had known from the very beginning that I was a strategist, but he didn't know that that was my last chance to complete the strategy mission. "Jiang Yan, I can't come back." The ambulance and the police car arrived at the same time. When the doctor wanted to move my body into the car, Jiang Yan firmly blocked them. "No, don't touch Xiaozhu. She's not dead, she'll wake up in a few days." Everyone looked at each other in dismay. The doctor comforted him. "Mr. Jiang, I know you can't accept it for a while, But your girlfriend is already dead, you should take care of your health. When Jiang Yan heard the word dead, his emotions immediately became agitated. He grabbed the doctor's white coat, the veins on his arm bulged, and he shouted. Shut up, Xiaozhu is not dead, how could she die? She clearly, his voice stopped abruptly. I saw the nurse give him an injection, it should be a sedative or something similar. He let out a hiss of pain, stepped back with his hand covering his arm, and soon fainted on the stretcher bed. The atmosphere in the ambulance was heavy, no one spoke during the whole journey, until the nurse who was cleaning Jiang Yan's wound let out a gasp. Everyone followed her gaze and saw that Jiang Yan was crying. He was still in a coma and didn't have a clear perception, but the tears that spilled from the corners of his eyes had already soaked the dark stretcher bed. His relationship with his girlfriend should be really good, right? What a pity. Hearing these sighs, I couldn't help but sneer. If they had seen the former Jiang Yan, they would know how much he hated me. The year I met Jiang Yan was the darkest period of my life. My parents got divorced, and neither of them wanted me. The only person in the world who was good to me passed away in the winter jasmine season that year, after being diagnosed with depression. When I held a small knife and wanted to stab it into my abdomen for the first time, the system found me. It said that as long as I completed the strategy mission and helped it achieve its key performance indicator, KPI, I could exchange for a reward. My eyelids twitched, and I asked it, can it bring back the dead? The system was extremely certain. Of course it can. It gave me a few days to personally select the target of the strategy mission, but I wasn't interested in anyone, until I met Jiang Yan in the martyrs' cemetery. He was sitting on the long steps, and the fine spring rain wet the broken hair on his forehead. He didn't speak or cry, he just sat there quietly. The wind blew the willow branches. I stood not far away and stared at the tear mole at the corner of his eye for a long time. Then I opened my mouth gently and told the system, I want to choose him. The difficulty of winning him over is very high, and before you, the system hesitated and then reminded me, there have been several strategists who were eliminated because of failure. Are you sure? I nodded firmly. The system couldn't persuade me. Helplessly, it helped me apply for 3 chances to complete the strategy mission. The higher the difficulty coefficient, the more chances for the strategy mission. From that day on, I spent time observing Jiang Yan and found that he was gentle, modest, and polite to everyone, but such a person spoke rudely to me the first time he saw me. TSK, tell me, did you sprain your ankle this time, or are you just going to throw yourself into my arms directly? I was taken aback. He squinted his eyes at me and sneered, what are you pretending to be stupid for? Even if women like you strip naked and stand in front of me, I still won't like you. I didn't understand what he meant at that time. Now that I think about it, he should have known that I was a strategist at that time, otherwise, why would he reject me so much? Later, I always stayed by his side at a distance that was neither too far nor too close. Once, his friend called me and said that he had a stomachache and asked me to go and bring him medicine. When I arrived, I saw him sitting on the sofa full of energy. He asked me, why are you here again? You're really persistent. I pursed my lips and didn't say anything, just handed the medicine to him. He didn't take it. Instead, he leaned forward slightly and said in my ear, since you're already here, let me treat you to a drink, okay? As soon as the words fell, my vision went blurry. Red wine was poured all over my head, flowing down my cheeks and wetting my chest all the way. The clothes in summer are very thin, and even the color of the camisole could be seen clearly. Jiang Yan glanced at me frivolously. Seeing that I didn't react at all, he seemed even angrier. You've been humiliated like this by me and were watched by so many people. Shinju, don't you have any self-esteem? Only then did I look up at him. The flickering light fell on that face as clear as the breeze and the moon, and the tear mole at the corner of his eye seemed to be about to fall. At that moment, I opened my mouth, but I couldn't say a word of retort. It's hard to imagine that such a person would actually agree to be with me later. It was a drag racing competition. Jiang Yan surprisingly gave me an invitation. When I arrived, I happened to see him standing on the podium, hugging 2 hot car model girls. Our eyes met, and he smiled at me, a very bad smile. Then, under my gaze, he slowly kissed their lips. You want to be with me, right? Now, do you still want to? After getting off the stage, he asked me this. I wiped the remaining lipstick from the corner of his mouth and said without hesitation, yes, I do. He looked at me for a long time, his eyes dark and unclear. Suddenly, he grabbed my wrist, pointed at the racing car not far away, and asked me fiercely, Do you dare to play a game of speed of life and death? If you win, we'll be together. The gameplay of speed of life and death is very wild. The two cars collide, and whoever breaks first loses. The whole audience was in an uproar. Several girls tried to smooth things over for me. Come on, forget it. Shinju has no experience at all. Aren't you forcing her to play with her life? Yeah, don't let the girl get hurt. Jian Yan was indifferent, and I looked up at his face and slowly said 2 words. Sure. The man's pupils suddenly shrank, and something seemed to flash in his eyes. I couldn't tell what it was. Anyway, in that game, he was the one who stepped on the brake first in the end, when I got out of the car. My stomach was churning, and I staggered and fell to my knees on the ground. Jian Yan angrily threw his helmet, pulled me up, and roared at me. Are you crazy? Don't you care about your life? And I just looked at him calmly and asked, can we be together now? His eyes were red, and he was speechless for a long time. Just like that, we naturally started dating for 2 years. Everyone said that I was deeply in love with Jian Yan, but every time these words reached Jian Yan's ears, he would always stare at me intently, the corners of his thin lips curving into a sarcastic arc. Love, women like this are the best at lying. She doesn't love me at all. I lowered my eyes and didn't say anything. After that, he often brought women home, tested my bottom line, and always threatened to break up to force me to compromise. Later, Xing Yaoyao returned to the country. There were 3 times of choosing between 2 people. I died each time because of Jian Yan's choice. Each time I died, the world restarted, until I used up my last chance to complete the strategy mission and could no longer be reborn. In fact, if you think about it carefully, how could the person being strategized show compassion for a strategist with false feelings when they know everything? After all, I was too naive. When Jian Yan woke up, I was floating around boredly in the ward. The door was suddenly pushed open. Xing Yaoyao walked forward with red eyes, firmly grabbed his hand, and asked with concern, Ian, are you feeling better? You really scared me just now. She was referring to what Jian Yan said at the scene of the car accident, that I would wake up again, but obviously, Jian Yan didn't want to talk to her much. He propped himself up, unlocked his phone, looked at the time, and suddenly said in surprise, 2 hours have already passed. Xing Yaoyao didn't understand and asked in agreement, yeah, what's wrong? Jian Yan's eyes flickered violently with emotions. His fingers couldn't help but tremble slightly, and his voice was tight. This is impossible. It's absolutely impossible. Xing Yaoyao was scared by him and stood there stunned, not daring to say anything. The first 2 times, the world restarted less than half an hour after I died, but this time, 2 hours had passed, and the world was still going on. Jian Yan suddenly stood up, his expression desolate, like a trapped beast. After a moment, he seemed to think of something, pulled out the indwelling needle, and ran outside. Xing Yaoyao quickly chased after him. I floated behind them, secretly guessing where Jian Yan would go, until the familiar house number appeared in front of my eyes. I realized that he had come to my home. When the door lock was pried open, Jian Yan rushed in at the first moment and started searching for my figure everywhere. Xiaozhu, I know you're not dead. Are you hiding from me? There was no one in the living room, no one in the kitchen, and no one in the study. Finally, it was my bedroom. After pushing the door open, he suddenly stopped, as if he was nailed there, unable to even take a step, because the 4 snow-white walls were covered with photos. He looked at them one by one, and a thin layer of red gradually appeared at the corners of his eyes. Ian, you took so many photos with her. Xing Yaoyao's face was ugly, and the jealousy in her eyes couldn't be suppressed at all. We've known each other for more than 10 years, and you've never. Halfway through her words, she suddenly fell silent. Jian Yan stared at her fixedly, his face turning gray and then pale. He almost squeezed out these 4 words from his throat. This isn't me. I looked at the man with a warm smile in the photos and couldn't help but bend my lips. Yes, that wasn't Jian Yan. Why did I choose him as my target for the strategy mission at first sight? Why did I waste all 3 chances on him? Wasn't it just because of his face? That face exactly like his. The window on the balcony wasn't closed tightly. The evening wind blew into the room and blew down a group photo. Jian Yan picked it up when he saw the beautiful handwriting on the back. His eyes suddenly turned red. Wish my little bamboo peace and safety, Lin Su. Memories, like the wind at dusk, slowly dispelled the haze in my heart. The first time I heard the name Lin Su, it was in the afternoon of the class division exam at the beginning of the 2nd year of high school. 10 years ago, my deskmate was a hooligan who even copied my homework. Before the exam, He asked me to help him cheat, but I refused. So that day after school, he blocked me at the back door of the classroom and laughed at me in front of all the classmates. "Fatty girl, you're ugly, and you're not kind-hearted either. Letting you pass the answers is doing a good deed and accumulating virtue, understand? You don't appreciate it. No wonder you're fat and ugly." At that time, because I had taken a lot of traditional Chinese medicine to treat acne, the hormones in my body were disordered, and I was really as fat as a little penguin. Many classmates were echoing. I blushed and was overwhelmed by a sense of inferiority. In the midst of so many taunts, suddenly a clear male voice interjected, "Are you so proud of commenting on a girl's appearance?" My eyes followed the sound. A boy in a black t-shirt and a black baseball cap stood beside me with his hands in his pockets. Later I learned that his name was Lin Su, a senior 2 years older than me. Lin Su raised his chin, motioned to my deskmate with his eyes, and said in a contemptuous tone, "I'm asking you, trash bug, you don't know how to respect girls, do you?" My deskmate was stunned for a moment. After reacting, he cursed and took off his school uniform jacket. About to start a fight, Lin Su took 2 steps forward and stood in front of me. I don't remember clearly what happened next. Before the fight, Lin Su put his hat on my head, and my vision was completely blocked. I could only hear the painful grunts of my deskmate. When it was quiet around me, I slowly looked up and met a pair of cold eyes. "It's okay now, you can go home." Lin Su's voice was very low, but it carried a soothing power. From that day on, my deskmate never troubled me again and even took the initiative to ask the teacher to change seats. I knew that Lin Su had helped, because several times when I was going home after school, I saw him hooking my deskmate's shoulder. He seemed to be smiling, but his eyes were extremely cold. "Ah, bro. Just forgive me. I'll never bully girls again." Lin Su frowned and kicked him. "Has your mouth learned to be good? Good, good, very good." When his expression softened a bit, my deskmate rode away on his bike. I was very grateful to Lin Su, so I bought a bunch of snacks to thank him. He was playing basketball with his friends at that time. After hearing why I came, he raised his eyebrows, lowered his head and took the cheapest lollipop, and smiled at me. "Thanks, you can keep the rest." Just like that, I carried the snacks back to the classroom. After school, when passing by the grocery store, Lin Su and his friends were walking in front. A few meters away, I heard someone ask him, "Who's the girl who gave you snacks this afternoon? Her face is pretty, but she's too fat." I subconsciously held my breath, wanting to hear the answer. Lin Su suddenly stopped, punched the man on the shoulder, and said seriously, "Shut up." After walking a few steps, he took out the lollipop from his pocket, unwrapped it, and put it in his mouth, saying vaguely, "She's quite cute." My steps stopped in place. Looking at their receding backs, I suddenly realized that was the first time someone described me as cute. It was as if an electric current passed through the tip of my heart, making it tingle. The schoolwork in the 3rd year of high school was very heavy, and I lost more than 20 pounds from being tired. Gradually, many boys began to chase me and write me love letters, but because of this, I was excluded by a small group of girls. They called me to a corner where no one was around, a place where the surveillance couldn't reach. I was pinned to the ground. The girl in the lead took a cup of boiling water and poured it on my calf little by little. "You were so fat before, now that you've lost weight, you're even wearing a short skirt. Huh, who are you seducing? Are you very proud that my boyfriend wrote you a love letter?" I was in so much pain that I couldn't speak clearly, and my voice was intermittent. "Who's your boyfriend?" This sentence seemed to offend her somehow. She got even angrier and told the others to hold my chin. The boiling water was poured towards my face. I closed my eyes subconsciously, but the imagined pain didn't come. Instead, I fell into a warm embrace. The boy's firm chest muscles almost suffocated me. "How are you? Are you okay?" Hearing the familiar clear voice, I suddenly opened my eyes and found that my back was already soaked in cold sweat. The girl was pushed to the ground and let out a scream. The boiling water scalded her own face. The commotion was so loud that when the dean came, those girls were so scared that they confessed everything. Lin Su greeted the dean and then picked me up in his arms and rushed all the way to the school infirmary. When disinfecting and applying a cold compress, it hurt so much that I wanted to cry, but I gritted my teeth and tried very hard to hold back my tears. Lin Su lowered his eyes and looked at me for a long time. He opened his mouth and said, "If you want to cry, just cry." I'm not a person who loves to cry. Since I was very young, my parents had both cheated on each other. They didn't love me. They got married just to get me a household registration. Every time I was wronged and wanted to talk, All I got in return were scoldings and rebukes. Come on, why are you so sensitive? Isn't it just being called fat? Who hasn't been scolded? I named you Shinju, hoping you'd be as tough as bamboo, but all you do is cry. It's so annoying. Before, when I saw other children cry, their parents would come to comfort them, but if I cried, my parents would be even more annoyed with me. Tears are just useless liquid in front of people who don't care about you, so later, no matter how uncomfortable I was, I never cried again, but that evening, in the infirmary, Lin-Su rubbed my head, leaned over and looked at me, and said, "Your eyes are all red." I closed my eyes and wanted to turn my back, then I heard him sigh, "Shinju, you can show weakness in front of me." Because of those words, my tears burst out instantly. When I cried until it was getting dark and the school doctor was about to get off work, I realized that I didn't bring my wallet. Lin-Su paid for me. I wrote down his phone number, added him as a friend when I got home, and transferred the money to him, but he didn't accept it for a long time until it was returned the next day. I sent a question mark. He replied immediately, "What's wrong? Why didn't you accept it? Keep it for now. Let's have a meal after your college entrance examination." I held my phone, and the corners of my mouth turned up unconsciously. Unfortunately, things didn't go as expected. After the college entrance examination, Lin-Su seemed to have disappeared from the world. All the messages I sent him sank without a trace. The next time we met was on New Year's Eve, the year I was a sophomore. My parents had already started living apart, and there was only me in the huge house. Firecrackers were going off downstairs. I was huddled in my room, watching the Spring Festival gala alone. When the clock struck 0, my phone suddenly vibrated. "LX, Happy New Year." I was stunned, my heart seemed to skip a beat, and my fingertips typing were trembling. "Lin-Su, is that you, or has your account been hacked?" The words typing were displayed at the top of the chat box. I waited for about 5 minutes and finally got his reply. It was very short, only 2 words, "Yes, it's me. Where have you been these 2 years, why? Why didn't you contact me?" I couldn't say the second half of the sentence, but the person on the other side seemed to sense it in advance and sent me a voice call. I answered, suddenly hearing that familiar yet unfamiliar clear voice. I didn't know what to say for a moment. It was Lin-Su who broke the silence first. He asked me to go to the balcony and face the 2 o'clock direction. I didn't understand, but I did as he said. A dozen seconds later, with a bang, a brilliant firework bloomed in the lonely night sky. The petals fell like rain, as if within reach. I kept the phone answering posture and looked up for a long time. A man's deep voice came from the other end. "Sorry, I was on a mission before and my phone was handed in. I missed a lot of your messages." My breath caught. Suddenly I remembered that Lin-Su studied in a police academy. "Last year at this time, you wished me a Happy New Year. This year it's my turn." After hanging up the phone, I saw the replies from my parents. "Happy New Year, Dad. Got it. Happy New Year, Mom. Busy." None of them wished me a Happy New Year. Only Lin-Su, only Lin-Su, only Lin-Su, who, after being out of touch for 2 years, set off fireworks for me on New Year's Eve to wish me a Happy New Year. I said before, I don't like to cry, but the tears just wouldn't listen. The 2 years of my junior and senior years of college were some of the few happy times in my life. After Lin-Su was transferred back to this city, we met more often, and our relationship gradually became closer. My roommate asked me, "Is the handsome guy who comes to pick you up downstairs your boyfriend?" I denied it. "No, he's just my brother." After answering, my face felt hot. Would a brother take his sister to a couple's restaurant on a date every week? Would a brother look at his sister when asked if there was a girl he liked present during a game of truth or dare? Would a brother climb over the wall to carry his sister to the hospital in the early hours of the morning when he learned that she had menstrual cramps and stay up all night to rub her stomach? No, but I didn't dare to ask more. Lin-Su was like a distant oasis that a traveler in the desert suddenly saw to me. I could only look at it foolishly from afar. I was afraid that if I got closer, the beautiful dream would be shattered. At the end of May, approaching graduation, I was exhausted by my graduation project every day. Lin-Su drove me to the beach to relax. On the way, we met several couples who invited us to play kayaking together. It seemed to be a competition activity carried out by a certain company. They were short of people temporarily. "Come on, little sister. Your boyfriend has such a good figure. He must have good physical strength, right? If you win first place, there's a reward." My ears turned red. "Ah, he's not." "Okay," Lin-Su interrupted me. I looked at him. I don't know if it was my illusion. The man's lips seemed to curl up, When we got on the kayak, a few seconds before the start of the competition, I belatedly asked, "So what's the reward for first place?" Lin Su's eyes shifted, and he replied a little unnaturally, "A very delicate Swiss Army knife." Very delicate, judging by his tone, Lin Su should like it very much, with the belief of wanting to win first place. Even though neither Lin Su nor I had much experience, we gradually fought our way to the top 3, but the first place team seemed to be at a king level. In the end, even Lin Su, who had good physical strength, was gritting his teeth and persevering. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the veins bulging on his arm and the cold sweat oozing from his forehead. Actually, I really wanted to tell him that it was okay if we couldn't win. I would give him an even more delicate Swiss Army knife tonight. While thinking, our kayak was slowly overtaking the first place team. When we passed by, the person on the opposite side suddenly let go and said to Lin Su with a smile, "Brother, you're really going all out. My wife is shy, she definitely won't be willing to kiss in front of so many people. First place is for you." I was stunned. What kiss? Wasn't it a Swiss Army knife? When I turned back and met Lin Su's smiling eyes, I realized that I had been deceived. Sorry, I had ulterior motives. Lin Su took my hand and stood by the beautiful sunset-lit beach, whispering an apology to me. The reward for first place was never a Swiss Army knife, it was 2 plane tickets to the capital and, "Kiss your loved one." My mind went blank. It would be meaningless for me to pretend to be stupid anymore. Lin Su, actually you don't have to be so desperate, you don't have to be so desperate, I will still be with you. He looked at me quietly and slowly said, "Xiaozhu, I wanted to win. I wanted to be with you, and I also wanted to." He pursed his lips and gently held my face. "Kiss you." Thump thump thump. My heart almost jumped out of my chest. Lin Su tilted his head and kissed my forehead piously. The picture was frozen at this moment. "Xiaozhu, I'm holding your hand." Being Lin Su's girlfriend was a very happy thing. He was always gentle and always emotionally stable. No matter how many conflicts there were between us, the first one to give in was definitely him. Alas. Little ancestor, I was wrong, please talk to me. When I received this reconciliation text message, I was standing at the entrance of the police station, bringing medicine to Lin Su. Lin Su had a bad stomach and often had stomachaches. When he got off work and came out with his colleagues, when he saw my figure, his eyes lit up. "Xiaozhu," but before he could reach me, the corner of his clothes was grabbed by a female colleague. "Axu, my car broke down, can you give me a ride?" I stood there, looking at them with interest. Lin Su frowned and pulled his clothes back from her hand, then waved back. "Luo, you take her, he lives in the opposite direction from my home." The female colleague bit her lip and asked pitifully, "Are you afraid that Sister Xiaozhu will misunderstand? I can explain it to her for you." Lin Su raised his eyebrows, and a look of impatience appeared in his eyes. "Sorry, I don't have the habit of spending anniversaries with 3 people. I couldn't help but laugh." The female colleague was left embarrassed and soon left. Lin Su opened his arms and walked towards me, hugged me, and spun me around on the spot. "My time is precious, I can only use it to accompany my girlfriend." I was ticklish and gently dodged. "Didn't you say you had a stomachache? Take the medicine first." He opened the car door, protected my head, and carried me into the passenger seat, smiling and saying, "I don't feel the pain when I see you." Lin Su started the car, looked straight ahead, and when the traffic light stopped, he suddenly handed me a bunch of champagne roses. "I bought it casually during my lunch break, thought I had to coax you since I made you angry." After handing it to me, he raised his hand and rubbed the tip of his nose, as if he wanted to sneeze but held it back forcefully. I sensed something was wrong. I lifted the collar of his shirt, and sure enough, saw a large patch of red rashes. "You idiot. You're allergic to pollen. Are you trying to kill yourself?" I urged him to go to the hospital. The young doctor who received us looked at him with a smile. "Allergic for love, amazing." I blushed and turned my head away, but heard Lin Su say generously, "That's right, she's my whole world." Everything between Lin Su and me was so smooth that it felt unreal. Our innocent first love had no absurd mistress, no misunderstandings, no cheating, and we just walked all the way to the engagement. Lin Su took marriage leave in advance to accompany me to Suzhou. I don't know why, but recently my heart has been vague pain off and on, as if I was about to lose something important. I was very uneasy. When we went to Shiyuan Temple to ask for a peace talisman, I knelt in front of the Buddha, kowtowed 3 times, and clasped my hands together, closing my eyes to pray. I hoped that Lin Su would have a safe and smooth life, full of happiness and no worries, as if there was a telepathy. I looked back and happened to meet his eyes. Lin Su stood under the Bodhi tree full of red silk, smiling at me with his eyes bent. At that moment, I thought that if there really was a God, he must be able to hear how much I liked Lin Su. We walked out of the temple hand in hand. A little girl politely stopped us and handed us a group photo. I saw you two looking at each other just now. It was so artistic. So I took a photo and gave it to you. Lin Su thanked her with a smile and put that photo in the pocket closest to his heart. On the second day of the marriage leave, Lin Su received a call and left in a hurry. He hugged me tightly and said, "Shinju, when the mission is completed, I'll marry you." Before I could say anything, the door was closed. The summer evening wind rushed into the room, but I inexplicably shivered. In the next 6 months, Lin Su lost contact again. Soon it was the end of the year again. Just like a few years ago, I huddled in the huge room, watching the Spring Festival gala. My phone rang. I answered it. Fireworks exploded outside the window, and it was also very noisy on the other end. There were the sounds of firecrackers, curses, screams, and even gunshots, all mixed together. After a pause, he softly called my name, Xiaozhu. My tears immediately flowed down. "Where are you? Are you okay? Are you hurt anywhere?" He avoided answering, his breathing heavy. "Are the fireworks beautiful this year?" "Yes, but unfortunately not as good as the ones you gave me that year. When I was 20, Lin Su once set off fireworks for me." The wall clock ticked, and the hour hand pointed to 0. He interrupted me. "Xiaozhu, Happy New Year, Happy New Year, Happy New Year," one after another, each sound getting lower. I covered my face and bit my lip tightly, not letting myself make any sound. Tears struggled to flow out of my eyes, dripping onto the dark blanket, forming large water stains. I knew he wanted to say all the blessings for the rest of his life. Bang, gunshots rang out, deafening. Almost instantly, the phone was hung up. Only the fireworks outside the window were reflected on the cold glass, flickering on and off, endlessly. I knelt on the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. "Lin Su, you lied. You clearly said you would accompany me for a lifetime. You clearly said you would marry me after the mission. You lied, you liar, liar." When I saw Lin Su's body, I could hardly breathe. It was as if someone was choking my throat tightly, like a piercing pain as a needle pierced my skin and oozed blood, painful to the point of numbness. "Wake up, Lin Su, don't sleep, get up, okay?" No one answered me. I held his cold hand and kept rubbing it. It should be able to warm up. Luo's eyes were red with tears, choking as he said, "Sister-in-law, I'm sorry." The day of the arrest was going smoothly at first, but those damned people actually carried guns with them. Captain Lin was shot and forced into the forest by them. When we arrived, we found that he had killed several drug dealers, but he himself, he couldn't continue. He tremblingly handed Lin Su's hangover to me. The peace talisman pierced by a bullet hole, the photo stained with blood, and on the back of the photo, a line of words was written at some point. "Wish my little bamboo peace and safety, Lin Su." How ridiculous. The person who wished me peace finally didn't get peace. I don't know how I got home, nor how I endured until Lin Su was buried. There was no name on his tombstone. Every day, I just sat on the steps of the martyrs' cemetery, looking at that square tombstone. When I wanted to commit suicide, the system found me. I agreed to help it complete the strategy mission because I wanted to revive Lin Su, but finding a target for the strategy mission was really, really difficult. My mind was full of Lin Su who stood up for me in the classroom when I was 17, Lin Su who saved me from the bullies, carried me into the infirmary when I was 18, Lin Su who set off fireworks for me and wished me a happy new year when I was 20. Lin Su who kissed me by the sea and confessed to me when I was 23, Lin Su who would send me flowers to coax me even though he was allergic when I was 24, Lin Su who smiled at me under the Bodhi tree in Jietai Temple when I was 25, and finally, Lin Su who was lying underground, lifeless, when he was 26. How could I forget him? So when I saw Jiang Yan for the first time, I decided to choose him. Only by looking at this face that was exactly like Lin Su's day and night could I have the motivation to live. It was very despicable, right? But at that time, I was really on the verge of collapse. I would go crazy if I couldn't see that face. So all your previous actions of being a love-struck fool weren't for Jiang Yan. The system, which had been dormant for a long time, suddenly spoke again. But for Lin Su, I nodded. At the same time, Jiang Yan, who had learned the truth, started to go crazy in my apartment. All the photos of me and Lin Su were torn off one by him and thrown into the trash can. His eyes were red, and he pressed the lighter. coldly watching the dancing flames lick the photos inch by inch. I was extremely angry and rushed over to stop him, but as soon as my fingers touched his body, they passed through suddenly. It's no use, host, you're already dead. Yes. I was just a soul and couldn't reach the physical object at all, in despair. The system gave me an idea. I can self-destruct, to exchange for one last chance for you to complete the strategy mission. I was stunned, my lips trembling as I asked, why? It was silent for a moment and then replied, because your lover is a hero. A hero shouldn't end up as dry bones in the less, he should be alive and enjoy a happy and fulfilling life. Almost instantly, my eyes filled with tears. My consciousness was gradually stripped away. And that white light appeared in front of my eyes again. The system's voice was getting farther and farther away. In the end, there was only a murmur. Host, this time, it's really the last time. I wish you all the best. Bring Lin Su back safely. When I opened my eyes again, the world had restarted. The familiar apartment environment gave me a bit of a sense of reality. I propped myself up and saw that all the photos on the wall were still intact. So I couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. My fingertips gently caressed Lin Su's face. He smiled so gently at me. Suddenly, there was a violent impact sound at the entrance. The door opened. It was Jiang Yan. He should have run here, right? His hair was messy. The moment he saw me, he grabbed my wrist and asked, who is he? Shinju, are you using me as a substitute? I smiled, unable to control myself. My fingertips brushed across the tear mole at the corner of his eye. Jiang Yan and Lin Su looked so alike. Even the position of this tear mole was exactly the same. After not getting an answer from me for a long time, the strength in Jiang Yan's hand gradually increased, and his eyes gradually turned red. You know what? At first, I really hated you. I hated your scheming approach, your false concern. Do you, as strategists, even consider me a person? Weave a beautiful dream for me, deceive me into falling in love with you, and then throw me away like trash. Finally tell me that it was all fake. He shook my shoulders vigorously. I couldn't stand it, and my back was pressed against the wall. I thought you were different from them, because no matter how much I humiliated you, how much I made things difficult for you, the way you looked at me always had deep love in it, so that last time, I was really about to fall in love with you. His hands were propped on both sides of me. His right hand clenched into a fist and slammed hard against the wall. His voice was so trembling. I thought you were dead. I rushed into your house like crazy, but then I saw, he grabbed my wrist, pushed open the bedroom door, and pointed at the photos all over the wall, laughing wildly, his eyes getting redder and redder. Is it fun, Shinju? Tell me, is it fun to play with other people's true feelings? I really hate you, because you're more despicable than them. I was pushed to the ground. The cold tiles scratched my palm, blood dripped down, staining the ground red. It hurt so much, but I had already cried so much that I couldn't cry anymore. Speak, who are you looking at through my face? I slowly propped myself up, looked up into his eyes, and replied word by word, my lover. He suddenly fell silent. His face was so pale that it was almost colorless, and his eyelashes were trembling uncontrollably. Fine, you really have something. He slowly turned his back, raised his hand to wipe his eyes. When he turned to me again, he was full of hostility. He pinched my neck. Since that's the case, I'll kill you and let you go down to accompany him. How about that? I closed my eyes and didn't struggle, letting him tighten his hand vigorously. Cough, cough. Actually, I should have died a long time ago. I should have died in that car accident. It was the system. The system sacrificed itself to let me be reborn. Jiang Yan didn't say anything, just gritted his teeth and looked at me. His eyes were so terrifying that he seemed to want to tear me apart. I thought I might have let the system down. Jiang Yan really hated me. My chest was very stuffy, my throat was hoarse, and I gradually couldn't make a sound. I was so breathless that I was about to suffocate. Suddenly, that hand let go of me. Jiang Yan clamped my chin. When he spoke, his voice was extremely cold. I suddenly changed my mind. It's really boring to let you die so easily. It's better to keep you by my side and let you witness your own death. I was imprisoned in Jiang Yan's private villa. He was a completely different person from Lin Su. I could always tell who was who clearly, if Lin Su was the moon hanging high in the sky, then Jiang Yan was a wild and unruly lone wolf. He locked me in the room, except for bringing 3 meals a day. The door was always tightly closed. At first, I refused to eat no matter what. Jiang Yan squatted in front of me, his fingertips pinching a photo of me and Lin Su. He took out a lighter from his pocket and pressed the switch. The flames leaped across the edge of the photo. Every time you go on a hunger strike from now on, I'll burn a photo, until all the photos are burned. I struggled to rush over, but my wrist was firmly grasped. Jiang Yan did what he said. I watched helplessly as several photos turned to ashes. Those were my only memories. I didn't dare to go against Jiang Yan anymore. I don't know if it was my illusion, but after I ate on time, he visibly relaxed. Occasionally, he would also be merciful and take me out, but every time on such occasions, there were other women around Jiang Yan. If you looked carefully, you would find that they all looked a bit like me, just like he was taking revenge on me for using him as a substitute. I could only pretend not to see. Time passed day by day, counting the days. Xing Yaoyao would return to the country today. The choosing between two people was about to start again, but this time, I was really tired. I lay on the cold floor, staring at the ceiling in a daze. I was thinking that if Jiang Yan still chose Xing Yaoyao, then after I died, could I see Lin Su? Could we still be together? Then let me die. When this thought came to my mind, I was surprisingly calm. The only thing I felt guilty about was the system. It sacrificed itself, but I was so useless. There was the sound of a car engine downstairs. Along with it came the girl's soft coquettish voice and the man's doting response. A thunderbolt split the sky outside the window, and a thick tree crown was split in half. The door of the room was pushed open. Xing Yaoyao walked over and kicked me on the ground with her toes, sneering at me. I looked at the window with empty eyes, until the lightning struck the villa. All the lights in the room went out, and thick, choking smoke kept pouring in. The roof beam suddenly fell, trapping me and Xing Yaoyao in the corner. I thought I finally knew how I was going to die this time. The fire was raging. In a trance, I seemed to see Jiang Yan rushing into the room. His clothes were messy, and he was in a panic. After looking at me, he didn't stop and went straight to the dying Xing Yaoyao. For the last time, he still chose her. I closed my eyes in despair. It seemed that someone turned around and rushed towards me. A pair of hands steadily supported my waist. Shenju, why do you have to be a strategist? Why do you have a lover who died on duty? These days of torturing you, I feel like I'm going crazy too. Jiang Yan patted my face. I really wanted to open my eyes, but my eyelids were so heavy. Your lover's name is Lin Su, right? To be honest, I'm so jealous of him. Just now I was thinking, if it were him, he would definitely rush towards you the first time, right? The man's fingers stroked my neck and touched my face. After a while, he sighed softly. You're safe now. I should go back and save Yaoyao. The fire is quite big. Do you think if I don't come out, it would be okay? He let out a low laugh and answered his own question. That would be fine too. By the way, will you miss me like you miss him? Alas, it doesn't matter. I seemed to smell the smell of the wind, the smell of freedom. There was a warm touch on my lips. It was as light as a dragonfly skimming the water. At the very end, he said, be happy, Xiaozhu. I slowly opened my eyes and looked at the villa not far away. The raging fire was devouring it. Ding. A mechanical electronic sound rang in my ear. Congratulations, host. The strategy mission is successful. The mission reward is being exchanged. When I saw Lin Su standing in front of me alive, I pinched my thigh hard. He took my wrist, turned his head, and looked at me with a smile. Xiaozhu, I'm back. I stood there stupidly, my legs weak, not even daring to blink. I was really scared that the Lin Su in front of me was an illusion. He looked at me quietly, with a gentle pull. He hugged me into his arms. My eyes were hot and wet, and I hugged him back tightly. I cried and babbled to him about everything that had happened during this period, about how the system found me when I committed suicide after his death, about the 3 failed strategy missions and the sacrifice of the system, about my entanglement with Jiang Yan. He listened very carefully, extremely carefully. After I finished, I looked up at him with red eyes. He gently rubbed my head. Our Xiaozhu, you really worked hard for me that night. Lin Su bought 2 plane tickets to Suzhou. He said he owed me a complete trip and wanted to make it up to me. This bastard tossed me around all night. The next morning at 5 o'clock, he even dragged me to climb the mountain to watch the sunrise. I was so sleepy that I could hardly keep my eyes open. I saw a strip of fish, belly white, emerging along the horizon, a red sun hanging in the blue sky, and the sunlight dyed the clouds rose-colored. I leaned on Lin Su, staring at the tear mole at the corner of his eye. He noticed my gaze and raised his eyebrows at me. He asked me, what's wrong? I said, people who watch the sunrise together will be together for a long, long time. It's a very silly thing to say, right? He also laughed and pinched the tip of my nose. Silly girl, I'll always be by your side. We walked down the mountain through the thin mist. When we reached Pingjiang, it started to drizzle. The boatman paddled his oar and shouted at me. It's raining, do you want to take a whooping boat? I looked back at Lin Su. He was taking off his windbreaker, wanting to shield me from the rain. I shook my head at the boatman, took Lin Su's hand, and said, let's just walk. The rain was fine and gentle, like a veil, falling on our hair and shoulders. As we strolled along the ancient streets, the sound of raindrops on the eaves was like a soft melody. Lin Su's hand was warm, and I held it tightly, afraid that if I let go, this beautiful dream would shatter. We passed by a small tea house. The aroma of tea wafted out, mixed with the smell of rain. Lin Su pulled me in, and we sat by the window, watching the rain-washed world outside. The waiter brought 2 cups of biluakun. The green tea leaves unfurled in the hot water, giving off a fresh fragrance. Lin Su took a sip and then looked at me, his eyes full of tenderness. Xiaozhu, this trip, I want to make up for all the time we lost. I nodded, my eyes a little misty again. Lin Su, I'm so afraid that this is all a dream. I'm afraid that when I wake up, you'll be gone again. He reached out and wiped the teardrop from the corner of my eye, his voice soft but firm. It's not a dream, I'm right here. I'll never leave you again. After leaving the tea house, we continued to wander. We stopped in front of a small handicraft shop. There were all kinds of delicate handicrafts in the shop, and my eyes were immediately attracted by a pair of bamboo-shaped pendants. Lin Su noticed my interest and went in to buy them. He put one around my neck and put the other in his pocket. Now, we're connected, no matter where we are. As the day gradually turned into evening, the lights in the ancient town were lit one by one. The warm yellow light reflected on the water, creating a dreamy scene. We found a small restaurant by the river and ordered some local specialties. While eating, Lin Su suddenly took out a small box from his pocket. My heart skipped a beat. He opened the box, and inside was a simple but elegant ring. Xiaozhu, I know I proposed to you before, but this time, I want to do it again. Will you marry me? Let me take care of you for the rest of our lives. Tears welled up in my eyes again, and I nodded vigorously. Yes, I will. He gently put the ring on my finger, then leaned over and kissed me. At that moment, the world around us seemed to fade away, and there were only the 2 of us, in this small corner of the ancient town, surrounded by love. The days that followed were like a beautiful poem. Lin Su and I traveled to many places, making up for all the missed moments. Everywhere we went, we left behind our laughter and sweet memories. One day, while we were lying on the beach, watching the sunset, I suddenly thought of Jiang Yan. I knew that I owed him an apology, but I also knew that I could never repay him for what he had done. Lin Su seemed to sense my thoughts. He took my hand and said, Xiaozhu, everyone has their own destiny. Jiang Yan,